about, sort of every area is a different plastic, and that's what you really need to take note of tonight, depending on the bait fish that you're at, depending on the water clarity, colour-wise, and lots of other things that go into effect, and also the water depth as well. And then there's technique. That's the last thing we'll talk about, is the technique, and obviously how to find the fish. Okay, really important. So we will start at the bottom end, which is the rod and reel. Okay, so when you're using soft plastics, our suggestion is to use something no longer than about 7'6" and no shorter than about 6 foot. Anything in that category is okay. So 1.8 metres to about 2.2 metres. Yep. It can be quite light on the tip, but you want it to be a little bit crisp, not too soft. Okay. The reason being, when you twitch up and you've got to say a 3/8 ounce jig head, 10 gram jig head, if it's too soft on the tip, when you go to lift it, the jig won't do much, but the rod will do lots of bending. You need the rod to stay a bit crisp, so it actually makes it jump. Okay, that's really important. So even though this rod's very thin, it's not super soft, and this is actually as soft as they get. It's like a 3 kilo rod, but it works perfect. So that's probably the base model you'd start at. Okay. The next one up would be a little bit heavier. Stu will run through his rods in a minute. Something like this fella here is just a little bit stiffer. Okay, it's a little bit more oomph to it. So you can still use a 1/6 ounce on a rod like this, but you can also use probably up to about 21 grams, which is 3/4 ounce. So you can fish the deep, not efficiently, perfectly, but generally you have 2 or 3 rods, right? But to do one to do everything, it would do nearly everything. And the reel on this one's still 2,500 size. So 2,500 size reel, and we're running around about anywhere from 6 to about 15 or 16 pound braid. We'll talk about the braids in a minute. We'll do it rods first, the rods and reels. And the last one is just that little bit heavy, which will do everything. So you can still cast a 1/8 or 1/6 on this, but it'll handle up to about an ounce jig. And that one we're running a very thin 15 pound braid. Okay, so very, very thin. So we'll talk about the braids now. So the reel size is 3,000 size reel, actually, I think. So the difference between a 3,000 and 2.5 is only the spool size. Holds a bit more line, a bit quicker retrieve because the spool's maybe a little bit bigger in diameter. So the rotor, which is part here, and the spools is that little bit bigger, so it's a bit quicker. But with flatties, it's about slow is better. It's not fast, okay? So you don't need to wind fast. So Stu, the braid. We'll talk about braid, mate, next.
Yeah. So
any questions on the rods and reels first at all? Everyone understands? No? Okay, good, perfect. Okay, leader. Oh, sorry, braid.
Yeah, so braid's a really big thing. So you're going to be doing a lot of casting, and you need to get maximum distance for minimal effort. You don't want to be flogging your ass off all day, trying to get massive distance, and you're throwing heat at the end of the room. You want to double it with minimal ease. So braid's got really good. It's got lots thinner. And you see all these X4s or X8s or X12. It's the amount of fibre that's woven into that one braid that you get. So most common is it just an 8 carrier. I'll just pull a bit out, Dougie, and pass it around. Yeah. And one of the biggest sellers for us is probably Upgrade, so X-Braid. It's a premium Japanese one. It's really good quality. It is multicoloured, so if you do decide to do any other type of fishing, so fishing channels or maybe a bit of light offshore work, because all this stuff can double as snapper gear as well. It's good to know where your lure or bait is, so you can just count the colour and you know where you are. If not, if you want something a little bit more, not affordable, but cheaper, just a good quality Shimano one is always good as well. So Kariki, that's another good one. But yeah, basically Braid's got better, thinner, stronger over the years.
So the braid coming around now is 16 pound. You can see how thin it is. But in saying that, Stu, like as we know, some of the lighter braids that are a different composition, like a 4 or 6 pound, is as strong as that one nearly. Okay, yeah. But so the tiny bit thicker, not much thicker, but different rating. The Japanese sort of rate their braids at the maximum, so it's definitely going to break at that or a bit below it. Where the 4-ply, especially, they underrate it by about 3 times. So if they say it's 4 pound, it probably breaks at 12. Does that make sense? Yeah. But the thickness is nearly similar to the 12 in the better line. But as Stuart said, the 8-ply and that's a lot nicer for casting. So much better. Yeah. One thing we didn't talk about was mono. How many people use plastics with mono? Don't be shy. Okay, change it, please. So you need to change it to braid. It's really important.
Yeah.
It's not only about the casting distance; it's about the feel. So you need to feel that tink when they're hitting it. And if you're not, sometimes I'll grab it, but you feel the tink, and straight away you'll pull up on it. If you got mono, don't get that delay. You get a delay, you don't get that tink. That's really important. A lot of times they'll come straight at you, and if you haven't felt that tink and you don't wind up, catch up to it, you'll end up missing a good flatty. So, yeah. Leader, Stuart?
Yeah, leader's one of those things that we're pretty divided on.
Yeah, okay.
I think another thing. Yeah, that's right.
I've got some Stuart leader. It's
Yeah.
about 3 pound.
I really like lighter leader. I think it's that final stage between you and the fish. That's what they see. That's what matters. Your main line doesn't matter as much. Obviously, it does for your casting and your feel and stuff, but the leader's a part that makes a big difference. So I spend a fair bit on leader. I think a good quality one's definitely worth it. You can get thinner, more abrasion resistance. It's better quality material, and I like it anywhere from about say 8 to 16 tops. Nothing over 16, but yeah, I fish a lot of 12 pound.
Yeah, 12 pounds probably the all-rounder, but you really need your box a light 8 or 10 maybe. I'm learning from Stewie's lightness. He loses a lot of fish by seeing get more bites, which is obviously not my technique, failure. It's the leader I blame. So anyhow.
I don't think I lose that many, but anyway.
No, me. I don't know me. I get as many bites. It's got to be that, mate. Can't be anything else. Anyhow, but my average size is 12 to 16 pound. I was a bit heavier, but he fishes light most of the time. Okay. The reason why I fish a little bit heavier because the flatty's like a lucky dip. One cast might be a 35 centimetre, next cast might be a 90, and you just don't know. And they're in the same spot, living side by side. And if you get that anything over sort of mostly over 60 actually, any of the plastics we're using in that sort of 3 or 4 inch size, it's always inhaled. They're that tink. When you feel that tink, you know it's a big fish, right? And they inhale it right down. And one thing we'll teach about tonight is running a bit looser drag than normal. If you run a tight drag, you'll definitely lose those bigger fish because when they do the big head shakes and the line's not pulling off your reel and it's just staying there, they'll just chafe the line. It's like rubbing sandpaper on a bit of tight string, right? So you need to let them pull drag off when they do the head shakes, but you can't have it too loose that the hook falls out. So it's a happy medium spot. So if you're going to fish light leader, you need to fish quite a light drag.
So is that fluorocarbon?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely fluorocarbon. So fluorocarbon, I think about that is you get up the ante in strength about probably nearly 2 times for abrasion resistance. So if we're using just mono, say 10 pound, probably 6 pound fluorocarbon has the same abrasion resistance. And that's why Stuart uses 8 or 10 pound fluorocarbon, it's like using 15 pound mono as leader. Yeah. About right.
I just use it because it works. Yeah.
So the other thing about fluorocarbon too, it has a few properties like it sinks so your lure gets down a bit quicker. It reflects light so light doesn't pass through it, believe it or not. So light reflects off it so the fish don't actually see it in the water. I don't know, we do, I don't know how the eyes are different.
Yeah. And it doesn't stretch as
They
much.
ask the flathead.
Yeah, so a mono leader will stretch a lot.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is when you work your lure, you want your lure to move. That's why we're using graphite rods, something a bit crisper, something a bit faster, less bendy. We're using braid because braid doesn't stretch. So mono stretches. So when you move something, the mono is going to stretch and absorb some of that action. And fluoro, again, it doesn't stretch as much as mono, so it's more crisp. So you move it, your lure moves. Not you move it and your lure goes
You
like
need to
that.
make your lure dance, really important.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, so any questions on that, on the braid or leader, folks, at all?
How often are you changing your braid?
Braid about every season probably, if you want to do it right, but like 3 or 4 years, if you don't keep it in the sun, it'll last.
Dougie gets a lot of tangles, couple of weeks. Nah, look, it's one of those things. Honestly, it depends. So Japanese braids and like real fine braids, they can actually wear out a bit quicker
get a
than
bit
a
fluffy.
thicker, ropier braid.
Yeah, yep.
Ropey stuff, I generally just run it until I see that back in knot. So it could be 2 years, it could be 12 months, it depends how I'm going. But then other times, the Japanese stuff, sometimes within 6 months, whatever, you start to see it slowly, breaking down or getting furry and stuff. But it's still worth that extra in the investment at the start.
The high-end stuff's like you comparing, say, $25 versus $50, right?
Yeah.
So double the price. So much nicer to use, but it doesn't last nowhere as long as the cheaper one, believe
Yeah.
it or not. But
Yeah.
don't go buying like eBay rope.
No.
It's no good, okay?
Yeah.
The £6 look like 160.
Yeah.
Oops.
American style braids will last longer. It's like
Yeah.
Power Pro Suffix, that type of stuff, but it's a lot thicker. So something where we can run, say, 20 pound in a Japanese braid, you'd be running 6 pound, it's going to be as thick, if not thicker. But it's going to break over 20. So it's hard to get your head around a little bit, but that's just what it is. But with the Japanese stuff, in Japan, they actually sell it off like life expectancy of the braid. You don't walk into a tackle shop and say, I want a braid that's 20 bucks. You say, I want a braid that lasts 6 months. Or you walk in and say, I want a 2-year braid, and that could be a $60 braid. So, yeah.
Oh.
How long do you go with leaders?
Yeah, that's the next question I was about to ask someone who no one said it yet, but that's a good question, mate. How long is the leader? Look, I fish a short leader, Stu fishes a long leader. So Stu fishes about 2 metres.
I'll start with about an arm's width, yeah.
Which is 3 metres on Stu.
Yeah.
So I use, mine's only always, my knot most of the time is hanging out of my rod, outside the rod. I don't want to get fouled up at all. Although sometimes when I do wind it does go through the first run, it gets fouled up sometimes. So I don't want none of that problem. To me, it's just a bite trace. Although Stewie does say before, the less visible your line is, or your braid is, the better. I understand that, yeah. But look, it's up to you. If you do good knots, then make it long. There's good knots, I do crap knots, maybe. So short knots otherwise, but my shortness would be about 700 mil long. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Once it gets down to like about 300 or 400 mil long, you're better off doing it again. Okay. And every good fish you catch, you've got to check, even a little one, you've got to check the line. And just have a pair of scissors with you, and like the comp last week, we would have retied our lines 50 times or 30 times, just from chafing or whatever it might be, or tangles with Stuart or whatever. Hence why my line's so short. So Stewie, any other questions on that at all? All good? Okay, cool. Jig heads. Okay, again, we fish a bit different to each other. So I used to fish heavy jig heads. My belief was that I wanted to puff the bottom up. That's why I used to use heavy jig heads. 3/8 was my lightest, half was my average. Okay, quite heavy. And my idea was when I lift it up and
Trying to knock them out.
yeah, like that sort of. And then, but when it hits the bottom, it buffs the bottom. Okay, and in Japan they do a lot of that sort of scenario. And football jig heads are really good for it because they're quite broad on the base. So when it hits the sand, it buffs it. And football jig heads work really well. But in saying that, Adam Barnes, he's a good fisherman in the Flathead world. He told us years ago, because he used to brim fish, and he said, you guys are fishing way too heavy. He's just like 1/6 or 1/4 is a heavy one for him, right? And we taught him our way, and he started catching more fish our way. But then we learned his way was actually better, I think. So we've gone the other way. He's always stayed his way most of the time. But so 1/6 to 1/4 is what we mainly use.
Yeah.
You want to add anything to that?
No, I think the biggest question when people do come in and that is different colour. Does a colour jig head make a difference? I think it definitely does. You can add contrast to your lure. So just say you've got a white plastic, you can put a bright pink jig head on it. Something to break it up. It's definitely contrasting colour. It's an added attractant. Is it the be all or end all? No, but I think it does help.
It does. If you got two rods, I'd have one rigged up the pink jig head or white or green jig head, but definitely I've caught a lot of fish standard.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so what size jig head to use in one application, that's really important. So if the current's running and you're fishing in, say, 1.5 metre of water and shallow, then you really need to use probably at least a 1/4 ounce if it's running quite hard. And you need to cast your direction up more into the current rather than straight out. But if you're fishing deeper water and you want to keep in touch with the bottom vertical jigging like teabagging nearly, then you'll need to use like 1 ounce or a 3/4 ounce fishing in, say, 10 metres at a jumping pin or something like that. It all depends on where you are fishing pretty well. How many people here have never cast up current and hopped it back? Has anyone not done that yet? Anyone just sort of cast out the front or down with the current? If you cast down the current, you'll understand you can never get to the bottom. It's very hard to hold the bottom, in touch with the bottom. And you have to be in touch with the bottom, that's where the flatheads live, right? So you'll need to learn to cast up current and hop it back with you. It takes normally 1 or 2 casts to understand which direction is actually right, depending on the wind and the current strength once you pull up at a spot. Or if you're from the shore, same deal. If you're from the shore and you want to cast that way and you've done a 30 metre cast, and we cast quite long casts. How far do you cast?
I don't know.
50 metres?
Yeah, maybe.
Quite a long cast. So we're trying to cover a lot of ground, right? And more flatties in between us and them. So in short cast, you don't get what's here. So, but what I'm getting at is if you're from the shore and you cast that direction and your jig head's maybe a bit too light and you've only done like 3 hops and all of a sudden it's gone past you, you'll never get to the bottom again. It just stays above the bottom all the time. You might get there a little bit, but you only get one little pull and it'll be off the bottom again, stuck. Won't get down. So you'll need to then alter your cast more that way or alter the size of your jig head. That's the two answers to the question. So, Stuart, what would you do there, mate? Would you cast up further or put a bit bigger jig head on?
I'll just cast further, yeah.
Yeah, further and up more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that all make sense? Yeah. Okay, good. So what is the right one to be using all the time? Look, if you can get away with 1/6 these days, I say 1/6 would be your go-to on, say, a 2.0 jig head or a 1.0. 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, depending on the size of the bait you're using. But actually, we'll pass around some jigs and some lures to show you the hatch sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Do you use a different weight depending on what style of plastic?
Yeah, a little bit. So, but it's more the area fishing. So on some soft plastics that may be, say, 5-inch, I might only use a 5.016 if I can get away with just sort of rolling it on the bottom, coming down with the current. I don't want to hop it too much. Right. But if I'm in a scenario where I'm fishing deeper water, then I'll just get rid of that 1/6 and I'll put a 3/4 ounce on it and jig vertically, you know. So it's not so much depending on the size of the plastic, it's more about the current. Yeah, what you want to do with it. So Stu, what would you recommend out of this batch here, mate? Another thing, paddle tails versus split tails. Okay, so paddle tails are going to have need a bit more weight to get them down. Okay, some little paddle tails are fine. They'll just go down quite easy with a light weight. But if you've got a big chunky paddle tail, like probably... yeah, that's right, casts have a really good action, they're fantastic, but they have a really big paddle tail. So if I was to put a 1/6 on that and the current was going a little bit, I might only get like 1 or 2 hops, but it'll glide a lot further before it hits the ground again. But if I'm using a plastic with like a prawn, a shrimp with a little soft tail, or a very small paddle, I'll be still up there, hopping the bottom quite easy. But the lighter jig head, same jig head, sorry, different tail, it's actually gone down current, and again, I can't get to the bottom, so I need to change my jig head up, or I need to cast it further up that way. Okay. But on that one there, Stu, what did you match up?
I'll just put a 1/4 on that.
1/4 2.0, wasn't that one?
Yeah. I actually like a pretty big hook. I'd probably run 3.0 on that.
3.0? Yeah, it's chunky.
So I like
I'll pass. Okay, that way. That's all right. Sorry, mate.
I like quite a long hook because at the end of the day, a lot of flatties do bite the tail and bite that back end. If you've got a real short hook up the front, say you're covering 1/4 of the plastic, it's just, you miss so many. You got to really let them eat the whole thing. Whereas if you run that longer hook, it's towards the back end anyway.
What about that smaller hook, like a stinger set up or something?
Yeah, it's probably not a bad option, but sometimes that stinger catches a heap of weed. Yeah, so if you just run that one hook kind of mid-plastic, it fishes through that eelgrass a bit better,
I'll pass this around next. This is like a 1/4 on a little bit similar size paddle tail, but a bit smaller. And then we'll go a really small one, small paddle tail. Do we have any of the little...
So do you guys prefer the curl tails over like the Nemesis ones?
Nemesis curl tail is probably the easiest plastic to work, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's
Good for
so
kids.
thin.
Good for kids.
Yeah, it's so thin at the tail and you don't have to move it much, just the current will make it swim. The problem is, it's so thin, a lot of stuff eats it. It's like toadfish, brim, pike. Yeah, so it's one of those, you go through a few, but...
Answer to your question, no, we like to use more of a paddle tail. Yeah. If that's all right. There's one in your bags, guys, which is a I think it's a top minnow. It's a storm minnow. If you see the tail on that's quite small. There's a big one and a smaller one. Yeah, like those, that's it. Yeah, so that's what we call a medium tail. So that size would suit about a 2.0 to 3.0 and about a 6 1/4 ounce. Yeah, the one on your left hand there, Max. I didn't bring any up here. I should have a bag. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Cheers, man. Size 1 or a bit bigger?
Well, you normally run that.
I won one. I do actually. I used to. Yeah. Actually, sorry. I'll pass this around. So I used to use those top minnows a lot in the last year or two since I first come out, and I caught a lot of fish on those with that jig head, that orange one there.
You've got a few jig heads up there. Can you recommend one of them or
All of them.
all of them? More?
They've all got a different application.
All different
John.
applications, John.
Yeah.
So to get. Yeah. Okay.
So depth, lure size, so
Yeah.
different hook size for different lures, different weight on how deep you fish in. If it's really shallow and clear, you might be able to use a 1/4, but if it's really shallow and weedy, you might have to fish like a 1/8. So, yeah.
So, sorry guys, so we're talking about jig heads here because it's like the next part of the equation. So we've gone the rod line leader down to the jig head. So if I can give you some guidance, and Stu probably back me up on this, you probably need to have, for your smaller jigs like up to 3 inch and thinner type profile, I'd suggest like a 1 or a 1.0. I like to use a 1.0 in the mushroom head from S Tackle in a 1.6. It's one of my go-to jig heads at the moment, that one there. And I'll use that up to about a 4 inch minnow, but quite a thin profile. That would be like one of your jig heads in that sort of size configuration. Your next one would be probably a 1.6 and a 2.0, a 1/4 and a 3.0, a 3/8 and a 3.0, and then maybe a half in a 4.0 or 5.0 for your deep water type stuff, and a 5/8 or 3/4. So you really need probably 5 or 6 sizes to cover your range of soft plastics. Okay, then you need to add into the equation if you wanted to colours. Okay, but most of them are pink. But there's one thing I can really teach you guys tonight is to never use jig heads. I know we sell them, but I don't know why we sell them, but we do sell them. But sorry, I'm trying to find it here somewhere. I think actually it might be here. I'll pass this around. So it's never to use a jig head like this one here. They're good jig heads, don't get me wrong, but they just fall off all the time. So you want your jig head to clasp your jig. So what that means is, so the hook, this is your jig head here, and your hook's coming off the back here, and that's your hook up there, and that's your little eyelet there. If you've got like the attachment point here, it commonly falls off. It gets pulled down. Yeah, like that, exactly. Get rid of that part there and get a jig head that has that sort of configuration. Okay? And when you put the soft plastic on, you push it up really tight. And a lot of those 10X or stretchy type ones are quite hard to put on. But once you learn how to put them on, you just got to measure it out where it's got to come through first on the jig. And we'll do that in a moment and show you how to do it. But once you know the location where it's going to come out, you then just squeeze it on as hard as you can and actually pop it over it, and so it clasps over the front and it actually hooks in nice and tight on this side of that. Okay, does that make sense? So this style here, which I'm passing around, is what I'd say, try and stay away from it more. They had their application, but and years ago that's all we used to have. And actually years ago we didn't have that. We just had a wire hook, which ripped your plastics apart. These ones here don't rip your plastics apart as bad, but they definitely don't hold on as good as, say, this style, or the one coming around, the orange one. Is there anything to add to that, Stu?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
And bang for buck, I dare say that this is the best on the market. We carry all the brands down there, don't get me wrong again, but Bite Science, these BKK hooks, they've got the perfect attachment on there like we're just talking about here, and their grey hooks are really strong, and price-wise they're like under $10 sort of thing. So and you get a lot in the packet compared to other brands too.
Yeah, there was a gap there.
Mm. And they do a good range of sizes too.
On a general note, how do you find jig heads with the eyes on them as compared to what's without?
Yeah, that's a good call too. So the gentleman asked about eyes on jig heads. Is that important? Look, some of them fall off pretty quick, but most of them, except for demons and the big eye, I think it is. The big eye is actually quite good on TTs, and the demons are good too. They have little eyes, but they do pop out. They fall off every now and then. Not on that brand, but other brands. But most of the jig heads that we use, I don't have eyes on them.
Yeah, I don't think it makes a massive difference.
No, there's generally some sort of eye on your soft plastic a lot of the time too. So I think you've got two lots of eyes. The fishers probably think they're seeing double, maybe. Maybe they've had a night in the terps, I don't know. But yeah, I'd not too much important, mate. No, not really important. Yeah. So we'll actually put some on plastics to show you how it works. If you want us just to do that for you. We'll get a stretchy type one, Stewie, which is okay. These are really good plastics. Has anyone tried the new Cross City in the prawn style yet? They're very, very good. And the neon prawns are very good. One, actually, all the prawn colours are good. But they're a little bit difficult to put on because they're that 10x stretchy type stuff, or whatever you want to call it. So they don't break, they're quite stretchy, okay? But the trouble is when you put that on, it just keeps on stretching and stretching and stretching and doesn't do its thing right. Stu? I'll do the normal type one. So Stewie's going through and checking his size, and he's going for the bigger hook, which I knew he'd do. I would have used a bit smaller.
Problem is, if you've got a really stretchy type material, plastic, something that moves a lot, like that, and you run a real small hook on it, you get a lot of, the tail flicks up and you catch it a lot. So that bit longer hook actually holds a bit more rigid. The tail still does all the work, but it's not enough to flick back up. Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll actually talk about prawns for a sec, which we're going to talk about plastics a bit later, but I just want to do it while we're here. So with prawns, we've really found out that the mushroom jig head or the football jig head works better than your normal type shape, like that type of thing. Okay. The reason being, particularly football jig head, it makes the prawn actually sit flat, like up the right position on the bottom, not on its side rolled over. They tend to roll over. And with a lot of flatties, they'll come up to it, and I think they've obviously seen the first hop, and they've come up and have a look. And when you do that first lift, when it's got a football jig head on, it comes up, it flicks like normal, right? And you get actually a lot of hits on your first lift up, which you don't get much when you're using the rollover style lifting it up. That makes sense. So you get more of your hits on the fall. So you get like double whammy. Okay. And that's one thing we've learned. If you grab those football jig heads, mate, let's throw it on this one.
And it's a BKK?
BKK, yeah. That's true. So just like so, but it sits dead set center, and always make sure you come out the center of the body. Right, don't put it skew width on the side. Although I'm saying that, a lot of the time when my like last one of my good colour plastics, where I'm out fishing in the session, is totally stuffed from that side or ripped, I'll actually put it in reverse it the other way around and still keep trying to catch fish on it. And then when it gets ripped that side, I'll actually put it through the sideways and I'll still catch fish on it. So it does work, but the best time's always the first time. Okay, that's why it gets ripped so bad, because it's going to work straight up.
So what sort of tail was that one there?
That one there's actually, I'll pass this around with it actually, and Stu can pass around that other pack from before. I just might, yeah, that goes with that one actually. And the Cross City one's the one from before. So that's how you put like a soft plastic on a prawn. Stu, do you know the prawns you want us to do?
Nah, that's all right.
That'll be right? Yep. Okay, so you see the prawns coming around have a very small tail, so you don't need a big jig head on it, okay? So 1/6, 1/4, 3/8 in a windy current situation would be the heaviest you use. So even like, I don't know if who fishes the seaway here? Anyone fish the seaway? So the seaway is a great area to fish big prawns up in those rock shallow parts where the white sand is amongst the rocks. For those of you who don't know about that, when you're fishing the seaway, the flathead's on the high tide, or once the water gets up onto those rocks over that sandy patch, there's little patches in between the rocks, right up tight on where the rocks meet the water. They're up on there. They slide up onto there and they sit there, hide on a rock or just sitting in the cover. And as soon as bait fish come in close, which they do to get out of the current, or they might do it for a bit of safety, they just nail them. So you cast up onto that soft sand patch, okay, in between the rocks. You're going to lose a bit of gear because you'll get caught around the rocks, unfortunately, but that's where the fish are. So a really good plastic there is a big, that one right there, Stewie's nailed it. Did you pick that one out, man? Yeah. So we're telling you stuff that we use to do well in comps. But that fellow there, Houdini, in the Berkeley power shrimp in the Seaway is like the legend. And one of the guys that's watching this tonight is probably going to stab me in the eyes for telling you. But and, he used to work for us actually years ago, Jace. But it is a really good one, yeah. So Stu, what jig head would you throw in that bigger one?
I'll still use a 6. Oh, 1/6 with a 3-0.
1/6 3-0? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's about right.
I'd probably fish a 4-0 in it, to be honest with you, but...
Yeah, you know those, we did one downstairs called Fuse, and it's only 1/6 5, I think it was a 4-0.
Yeah.
And it's such a good lure jig head. That's a very small jig head, very light, but it's emulating the prawn, just sort of like skip around on the bottom, you know? So that's probably going too small, actually, Stu.
Real dark.
Oh yeah, that's perfect, mate. Is that yours?
Yeah.
Oh, might not come back, mate. Okay, I was going to show you something here. Stewie, I can't stand it. But Stewie's, yeah, that's right. Stewie, when he cuts his, when you tie your knot onto your jig head, no one's asked this question yet either.
I never cut the tag.
Do you do a loop knot or do you do a tight directly to it? Stewie always ties directly. I always do a loop knot. Okay, so we're different in that area. How many people do loop knots? Well done. Okay, how many people? Okay, anyhow, but Stewie leaves a long tag. And I said, Stewie, why don't you trim your tags off? Like trim them down neat, you know? And he goes, prawn feeler.
Looks like a prawn feeler hanging out the front. There's a little antenna.
But for me, if I was a flathead, I'd be getting poked in the eye. I'm going to swim away from that bait, right? Because it's not normal.
Yeah, like if I do, I just don't cut them. I just tie with a real small tag and just leave it and it's done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it works, that's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, that hook going around is a little bit heavier gauge. Ideally, you'd have one that's really thin gauge because it would go in really well. But if you're fishing a little bit heavier hook, that's really uncrooked. But if you're fishing a heavier hook, you just got to fish a bit stiffer rod. So just to set the hook, that's all. Yeah.
A lot of my plastics like acupuncture. Got plenty of holes in them.
A lot of Dougie's plastic swim around in circles as well. Yeah.
But that's all the size jig head you need on that one to work it in, say, the Seaway. Or up on the flats, say, like Gold Bank or a jumping pin. Or if you're land-based, then you've got high tide and the current's slowing right down. Cast up current as much as you can, do that little bit of slow current, and just slowly just hop it back. Don't go too erratic. You don't see prawns, they do flick away a bit, but they tend to be more just like backing away when they're cornered or whatever. So when you catch prawns or you catch yabbies or whatever it might be, and you go to grab one out of a bucket or whatever, watch how they act. Then you try and emulate that in real life when you're doing it on the soft plastic. Does that make sense? So if you see them, they flick away, then try flick that sort of flick. And if they sort of back away, then just little flick, okay? Yabbies can't do much, they just go around in circles around the bucket, but yeah. Anyhow. Stewie, so we've done the prawns, so next we're going to do is a paddle tail. We've done one paddle tail. Probably jerk shads, do you reckon, mate? Oh, actually, these ones.
Well, just really quickly, back to
Yeah.
like tying the actual plastic on or whatever. Doug, you tie a loop knot, I tie straight on.
Okay, this is
What's the
important, guys.
reason?
Sorry. The reason why I do a loop knot, I believe it has a lot more action. So when my line's tied directly to the jig head and I go like that, I'm actually going to move the whole jig head whichever way I move with my hand, right? But with the loop, when I do that, it's like you know how you get to some jig heads that have got the jig head with the hook separate. I can't remember the brand we used to do years ago. Elevated jig head's a classic example. You get a lot more action out of your plastic. There is a downfall to it, but Stu's going to now tell us the bad side of it. Go tell us, Josh.
Well, the first thing is, you work your lure anyway. So if I move the rod, I want my lure to move.
Yeah.
And I want it to move the way I've moved it. I want to know what it's doing. So if I tie straight to it, I know what it's doing. I'm not tying a loop knot and hoping that it's doing something down there. So I know that if I go bam, bam, the lure goes bam, bam. Not around the corner, around here, over there, over there. Anyway, the other point is because it's a heavy object and you're fishing potentially light leader, you've got a hard surface or a hard circle, hard loop, and you've got your soft loop of line constantly slack tight, slack tight, slack tight. All you got to do is have a couple of casts. You'll see the mono or the leader start to flatten out and loops break. So after heaps, you might cast them off. It might break on the cast, it might break when you're fighting a fish, but you bring it back and the loop will be open like that. It's just worn through and it's just broken off. So, yeah.
Haven't had that really happen too much, but it does happen.
Normally when Dougie casts and loses it, the whole leader and everything breaks off and goes with it. It's all right.
I thought you were going to get some documentation on that, like line thicknesses and that after.
Nah.
All good. So, okay, that's a good point, Stuart. Thank you. Thank you, mate. Yeah. Okay, so there is another alternative which you got in your bags. It's a little fast attach clip. Now we both use fast attach clips, and they are very easy for quick changing a spot if you're in a different spot. So if you're fishing an area there and there's not much current or there's a back eddy and using really light jig heads, whatever, and then you might be in a boat. So for example, you burn up the road a bit further and it's like ripping, and that jig head's not going to suit, you quickly just use a fast attach. So I got one here the gentleman gave to me before, which are these little things here, okay? So I'm quickly going to put one on here and show you how quick it is to work.
Do you use those in your tournaments, right?
Yep, used them the other day.
Depends on the lure.
Yeah.
I got lures that I don't like them on, I got lures that I do like them on.
Don't like that extra bit of weight on it.
Yeah.
So Stu's going to show you how. So it's just a matter of holding the fast attach clip, the line attach, hold that end, and just guide the lure on like that. That's as quick as it goes. That's it. It's on. Take it off, pull off like that. So you don't have to cut anything or do anything. It's just like dum 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 dum, and great for troll lures. Okay, because troll lures you working it and the colour's not right. You want to change it, and it's a bugger to keep cutting it and changing it and trying to steer the boat, and not hit another boat.
They don't affect them as much because you roll.
Correct. Yeah. So it's little fast attach systems, very quick to change your lures. You'll see as Stuart's come around here, you can play it as it comes around. On, off, on, off.
So the easiest thing is if you hold the actual fast attach hard or like so it's fixed, and then you wind the plastic jig head or the jig head around.
Guide the lure or the jig head around it and then take it back off, same deal. Just don't stab yourself, please, as it comes around.
Loop knot scenario with your loop knot.
Yeah, well it is,
I rest
but
my
you can't wear through that. So,
No, that's true, Stu.
but, I don't really.
Plastics don't affect.
The other good thing too, guys, with this is that it is added protection on the flathead chafing a line, because it's right where that point is where they chafe the line all the time.
Do you reckon it's any disadvantage at all, though?
It catches fish. Yeah, look, it might be less than 5%, I would dare think, 10% max. And we use it in comps only because the time that the speed of it is probably outdoes the amount of fish that we might shy away from it, you know? Yeah.
Also catches a lot of weed, but so if you've got a lot of like thin weed and stuff like
Snotweeds,
that,
it's not good for snotweeds.
it's not good. Always catches on that.
But nothing is really.
Well, that's what,
well,
especially Stewie's prong hanging out.
A prong is good. Acts like a little weed guard. Pushes it
A
off.
weed guard.
It's like a little windscreen wiper if you jiggle it the right way.
Okay. So we'll put on a big plastic with a big heavier jig head, just to show you what the scenario for that. So here I've got some 501 ounce. So we'd be using this, say, jumping pin bar or seaway if you want a vertical jig. So I know you can't just from the shore, guys. You could probably use the situation from the bridge if you could find a bridge you can fish off. Thanks, Stuart. When we're fishing in deep water, we're only casting about the distance of the depth at the most and letting it come down and pretty well just teabagging it, lifting it off the bottom, drop it back down again. So when you're fishing in that sort of jumping pin area, from Swan Bay entrance around to on the end of North Stratty, all the way around to Duck Creek, we need to use something that's fairly heavy and it's going to hold us vertical. If you let too much,
You cast it out and just let it sink
just
down.
the length of the depth,
So,
pretty well.
yeah, right.
Like when we got close to the shoreline, we'll fish differently with lighter ones and work the edge. But when we're fishing the deep vertical,
You're drifting
straight
while you're
down.
doing that?
Oh, sorry?
Drifting while you're doing that?
Drifting while we're doing that, yeah. So one thing about electric outboards is they're designed more for holding you against the wind, not so much the current. A light current's okay, but in strong current, they're useless because you cast your line up and it's gone straight past you. It's too fast, and the motor works hard and it's very hard. So they're only when you got not much current but you got a lot of wind, they're great, fantastic. So on this sort of thing here, I'll be using a bigger plastic. I want to take a gulp. That's like, actually I won't put it in there, but I'll pass this around. You can see the size of it. But that's the sort of size jig head for that sort of size plastic for deep water. So big grubs are really good in deep water. I know, Stu, is anything, maybe Nemesis, mate?
Yeah, Nemesis, anything longer, so I'd probably fish 5 to 7 inch in the deep. Just you're targeting a bigger fish. They
So
move to
Nemesis,
spawn, they're hungry. So flatties don't necessarily live in the pin bar. They go there for a reason, that's to spawn. So around moons, like around full moons and new moons and stuff like that, you will get fish that transition to the bar. And during that period, they get hungry because obviously they're doing what they do. And they need to eat and they need to eat a lot. So they'll eat a lot of bigger plastics and stuff like that. So the other thing is with those bigger female fish that do move there, you get a lot of little males. By using that bigger plastic, generally, you wean out some of those little fish. Yeah.
Yep. And it's very hard to fish light jigs in fast current. Too hard. Yeah. So any questions on that side of it? The big one coming around? No? Okay, we'll keep going. So the other things you can use is jerk shads. So jerk shads, Stu, we do a bit more erratic action.
Jerk shad's good because it's very slender. It sinks a lot faster, so you're more direct. So you might not have to throw it up current as much. You might just be able to drop it straight down just because there's no drag. So there's no big paddle tail or there's no big curl tail swimming down. So with the same size jig head, you're probably going to halve your sink rate.
So when these bite signs come out, about 2 years ago maybe, we gave this particular one here a go, and we had some samples before they were released, and we actually fished the Flathead Classic, I think it was, and it outdid anything that we had in that style, and we're fishing up against the edges of banks, and it drops off quite deep, quite quick. Using quite a light jig head. And that particular one, particular colour, probably with about, maybe that size there, Stu, probably, actually.
Yeah.
On there was really good. I'll pass this around. So this one here can be used in deep water with a bigger jig head, but it's really good casting up where the bait fish are in the shallows on the edge of the banks.
What's that one called?
It's a bite science. I'll pass the packet around as well. Jerk minnow, radioactive colour instead of nuclear chicken. Green and red, otherwise, yeah. Yeah, so it's a great lure. They also do a range. We'll actually go through. Is there any other questions on the jig heads at all? We'll go through. We've got a lot of plastics to cover. No, everyone's good. Okay, we'll start off at the easy end. So, pre-rigged jig heads. So we'll keep while we're in the deep. This is probably going to be. I reckon it's only just come out now. I reckon it's going to be a really good worker in the deep, fish in the deep water, fast current, pre-rigged jig head. That one there. So pre-rig means you don't have to do anything except just tie it on. I used these little fellows last year and the year before again, and caught like 70s, maybe even 80s on these little ones. And that the colour we had back then was pretty dull colour. They've got really good colours now. The white is actually going to be the goer. If you had a choice of colours in jigs, soft plastics, like out of all the colours we have available, which is a lot, I would dare say mine would be white, probably, Stu.
Yeah, probably white.
If you have one
as an
choice, one
all-rounder.
colour, the white would be the go. So if you haven't used white, get into it. That could be one of the reasons why you're not doing too good, maybe. It's just such a good thing. But that little jig there, it just catches like you would not believe. It works really well. Again, BKK hooks. So BKK, a hook company that came through about probably 10 years ago. In the last few years, they got really famous. They got right into doing some really extreme type hooks and sport fishing type hooks. They're just a really good hook. There's Japanese steel, which is the best, as do Gamma Catches and other brands, but their price point's much better. So pre-rig, that's probably the brand that I'd stick with. Go back again 5-10 years ago, there were so many pre-rig lures, and one of the big sellers used to be squidgies, and still are. Squidgy pre-rigs are still popular, but we sell probably more that brand at the moment. Storm got into it as well, but they don't work very well. Don't seem to work as good. They do great lures in other areas, but not that particular one. And they don't do as many these days for that reason, maybe. Then the next style lure that we use, there's a couple already going around, obviously jerk shads. So jerk shads we talked about in the green one going around. But gulps do a great range of jerk shads from little 3 inches, but 4 inches is a flatty size. 3 inches is a bit small, okay? So 4 inch, that one there is actually very popular.
Yep.
Bigger the lure, bigger the fish?
No, definitely not. Elephants eat peanuts. So, yeah.
What about
Cupcakes.
cupcakes? As long as they got pink icing.
Yeah, I hope I got a big cake on Saturday night. Look, guys, it's more about matching the lure, the bait that's in the area, okay? So, and this year's been a lot of little bait. There hasn't been much big bait. A bit of big bait the other day, though, starting to show up, mullet and stuff like that. But it's been all that size, lots of little white bait. So keeping that little lure, like when the season starts with flatheads, it starts about probably around late May, early June. That's when the flatheads sort of start. And then by June, July, the little bait fishes are around everywhere, and the flatheads are quite small. They're in that, you get the odd big one, but they're mainly around that sort of 37 to about probably 47. But you can get there and catch like 50 in a session on soft plastics, which we do often. And but you get the odd 50 or 60 centimetre one, the odd 70 or 80 centimetre one. By August, which is now, we'll get to the end of it, the bigger ones start to come down the front, like Stu was saying. They start to get ready to breed on the moon, whatever, and to get a bit more regular size, 60 to 80 size centimetre. But still a lot of little ones, but not the channel rats we were getting 2 months ago in numbers. Do we change the lure bigger for those bigger ones? No, we don't. I don't. I still stick around that 3 inch sort of size or 4 inch max. But there are a lot of guys that do only throw that sort of size lure. And they catch a lot of big fish, but they're predominantly just chasing bigger fish. And as Stu was saying before, if you use bigger baits, you get a lot less fish, but you get big fish. So if you just want to target big ones and not get the little ones, then stick with about a 7 inch bait, soft plastic.
You're going for a feed,
Yeah, exactly right. I get numbers, yeah. So when it comes around to the fishing comps, which like the Wilson, anyone fish the Wilson Elite here at all, Tom? No? Okay, I hope you guys do next year. Get into it. So after tonight, you should be catching more. But my suggestion would be to start and keep it, if you're going to fish for big lures for those, because it's your 5 biggest or 10 biggest, whatever, unless you're fishing around areas where the bait fish is small, then you stick little, keep little. Also, prawns they're really out of waterways all the time, aren't they? Really they are. Although we have prawning season around February through to May, or June sometimes. So early in the season, we use a lot of prawns, okay? But you still get bigger prawns and odd prawns around all the time. So that's why around the seaway, those really big prawns work at the time. And all those big prawns, sometimes you'll be sitting in your boat and you see one swim past. And you think, oh, it's a big prawn, you know. So the flatties, for them, is, I guess it's like going to a smorgasbord and seeing a big king prawn sitting on a plate. They want to eat it. So don't alter the size so much on your prawns. Just always have a prawn rigged up, ready to go, or shrimp, whatever you call it, on your line. Stewie, we'll keep going on. So those little white ones going around, really, really good. Now, these are my go-to. Stewie, they are. So I've been using these a lot. These are the fishtail minnows from S-Tackle. S-Tackle did help us out tonight and put some gear in your bags, which is really good, but I'm not plugging it because of that. They work, okay? So if I've got 3 rods in the boat, at least one of them's going to be rigged up one of these on it. It's one of my go-to. They've got white belly. They're the stretchy stuff. And this 4-inch, particularly the 4-inch pilchard, the garfish is good in a big one, and so is the white bait. But in the 4-inch, I like the pilchard colour. I have caught them, actually used garfish the other day, actually ran out of the pilchard colour. It still works.
Yeah, they're very durable.
They're just such a good lure, and they're a lure you work a little bit differently. So we'll talk about his action a bit later with different plastics, but my action on this one's a lot less aggressive, so it's more just a little lift it up and bounce it. So, and I really like to cast it up current as far as I can. So from the shore, same deal, guys. Cast it up current, and using a very light jig head, like a 1/6 in about a 2/0 or 3/0, and just sort of just twitch it, like it's emulating like a little fish that's sort of injured, and then he rolls down the current, and then hops back up again and rolls down the current, and they just nail it. They nail it so good. So that's the 4-inch, and the 5-inch, the same scenario. They're really good. And I'm using a mushroom jig head, that pink one that went around earlier, the S-Tackle one and that.
How long do you normally persevere with it though before changing?
Yeah, I'll change spots because I know it works. If that makes sense. Look, I'll let Stewie's out fishing me, which is probably regular sometimes, recently. So I might change the lure to suit his. But look, at the end of the day, he has about 3 different lures rigged up, or we actually have 5.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be
I'll fish
corrected,
5 rods.
correct, yeah.
And I'll probably fish 10 or 15 casts with a rod. If I don't get a bite, I'll pick up the other rod and keep fishing.
And quite often that'll put.
There's fish there.
Yeah, but you've got to find out somehow. So
Yeah. So our routine would be to cast our favourite plastic, and generally small, 3-inch or 4-inch, like going around. Light jig head, normal scenario like we're talking about. And if we don't get a cast, normally you get a fish straight up first go, if you know the spots, which is the final part of the puzzle tonight. But if you are new at a spot, or we're trying a new spot, maybe you learn to read the water. You see what the weed beds are. You see everything. You know the fish are going to be sitting in that area. You cast up there, and as Stewie said, 2 or 3 casts, 4 casts, whatever, maybe a bit more. And if you don't pull one out of there, then we might switch to a little vibe, soft vibe, which are really good, and then hop it back. And if you don't get a fish on the vibe, Stewie might cast a hard body. I don't, obviously, for the soft plastic. And then I'll do a hard body, different scenario. So if I haven't got one of my favourite 3 lures, then we'll move spots. If that answers your question. Time frame, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes max in one area. If you haven't got a fish in 10 minutes, you're out of there. Do you say anything different to it?
No, maybe 10,
Yeah.
maybe 20.
Yeah.
So did you say you just fish an area for 10 and then you move on if nothing's going on?
Pretty well. So you need to understand your area that you're fishing at a certain stage of the tide. Before that, though, you need to have areas suited to the wind on that day. So you can't fish that spot or that bank along there because it's blowing a southeast, there's waves that big on it. But in a northerly, it's glass out. So that's the spot you fish in a northerly, you know.
So you're looking for less ripple on the water?
It's Flathead like calm. You'll get them in the windy areas, so it's hard to get a bow in your line. And it's very hard to fish a bow in your line for flatties. So you want it to be direct. And there's one thing I can say on even if the current's not right or whatever, you're going to get more fish casting. Unfortunately, like I said before, take back what I said, but cast across the current directly into the wind if you have to, and hop it back straight towards you, rather than cast protectively up current and do it the right way because you've got a big bow in your line, it's not going to work. So you're better off doing short casts than doing quicker time in that straight into the wind.
Do the flatheads, do they look up current for stuff coming down?
Yeah, they do. So
Or do they sometimes?
they'll shoot around. They'll shoot around. So there's been a lot of videos done where you see flathead guys trolling, they put a water wolf or whatever on the line and watch their troll lures. And you'll see the flatheads always trolling with the current, and the flatheads are facing into the current, and you see them, they turn around. So they'll turn around real quick, and because they can hunt a fish quicker with the current, right? So if you're trolling against the current, they'll watch you go past, but it's hard work for them to catch up to you. Does that make sense? But it's easy for them to turn around and nail that bait or whatever. So when you hop in the fish,
Troll against the current.
no, troll with it.
Troll with.
Yeah, troll with the current. Yeah, and cast too. So when we're casting, mate, we're casting up into the current, and then we're hopping it back with the current. Never against it, because you can't get to the bottom as well. Yeah. Okay. Stewie, we'll keep going on here, mate. So next is like little paddle tails. So you've got a packet of those pad tail slims in your bag. The Cross City, that one there, did really well the other day for us in that comp. That's one of their new on Stewie said before, the heavy hitter it's called. It's got a heavy tail on it, but because that's so soft, I'll pass one around, they tend to pull a light jig head will pull it down quite easy. Okay, because it's not stiff like the cast ones before. So they're really good. They do some great colours as well. Only tried the green one so far. McCarthy baits. So does anyone use McCarthy baits at all? They're really popular. Do you use them, mate? They're a very, very soft lure. Okay, so you don't need a very big jig head for such a big profile. Again, it's sort of like we call that medium-sized tail, so you don't need much weight to pull it down. But they're extremely good action. But the problem is they break easy. So they get the fish, but how much do you need to? They're only like, I don't know, probably work out $1.50 each or something like that per piece. So you get one fish on that. That's pretty good, I reckon. But so you don't need to. They last more than one fish, but they'll get chewed up pretty quick. Okay. And then you just go down smaller in profile, down to quite small, like sort of Z-mans and stuff like that, 2.5-inch profile, 3-inch profile. Cross City also do this fella here, which is the jerk. It's a great little white bait type thing, so that's sort of early season type stuff. Emulating the little white bait that's around, that's really, really good. They do a green and white one as well, it's really, really good. Okay, the white one's great as well. So Cross City won the awards last year, I think they won it again this year. They're just a really good lure and a long-lasting lure. So for me, a long-lasting lure is a lure you can get about 10 fish off the one plastic before you have to throw it away.
Well, that dual injection moulding they use is not next level.
Next level, like the green and orange belly in it. That's right. No, incredible how they've done it. And Mick Horn is a really good fisho. Is the main guy developing all these. So like we're normally at the mercy of Europe or America for our plastics. America's about 20 years behind us, which is about 20 years behind Japan. So to me, the Japanese do the best soft plastics. And Australia's very good as well. So any Australian design plastic's extremely good and way ahead of the States and other areas. Hence why they're doing such a great job. And that's probably about it in your paddle tails or curl tails. Any questions on that at all? No one's asked would you use a worm over a paddle tail. I know we did mention it earlier, but my choice would be paddle tail, Stu.
Depends how the fish are feeding. So if they're really doughy and they're not really eating real hard, grubs and stuff work really well. But if they're feeding quite aggressive, it takes too long to work. So you can put on a jerk shad or a paddle tail or something like that and fish a lot quicker, therefore catch a lot more fish. So worst case scenario, if it's a really bad bite or a really hard bite, I'll put on a curl tail and fish a curl tail. But
But worst case, that's you're going to use them otherwise.
I wouldn't put one on to try a new spot, put it that way. Yeah.
Okay, then we did talk about shrimp or prawns earlier, they're a massive part of our soft plastic market. So they probably account for about half our soft plastics downstairs now.
Yeah.
And there's now everyone's doing it. So Gulp was the original guys that did shrimps back in the day. And then they did the Berkeley Pro, which is this fella here that went around earlier, the big one. And then now Bait Junkie are doing one as well. They're doing a shrimp as well. It's very, very good. Stewie's been using these. I've been using them a little bit. They're very good. But still, I find it's very hard to go past the Gulp shrimp. 3-inch shrimp or 2-inch shrimp are really good. But they did bring out last year, and unfortunately, they did sort of do one similar to another brand. I feel sorry for the old mate because he's a good guy, but they brought out the turbo shrimp. And the turbo shrimp, that one, not that one there, Stewie. It's got like little bendy legs, that's right, yeah. It's in here. We just run out of room on the table here, so we had to improvise. Some are in here. This is like my tackle bag in my cut boat. Actually, I've got about 5 of these tackle bags. Plastic bags. So this fellow here, we used this last year when it came out. We've used it this year as well. It's probably like one of those 3 lures that I'm saying on my rod. The thing is with Gulps, I don't leave them on the rod all the time because when I go from A to B, if I don't use it for about an hour, it shrinks and starts to get a bit stiff and lose its smell and its action. So they're one of those ones you leave the bait jig, the jig head empty on the rod, or you take off another plastic, then put one on when you're going to use it. So it doesn't always sit on the rod, so I can't say it's always on my rod, but it is always on my rod. Yeah, just I'll come back to life sort of thing, so to speak. Yeah.
Don't leave them until you get home.
Yeah, that's right. If you do leave, has anyone ever left a Gulp on their hooks? You got to get a knife and carve it off. It's like carving wood, right? So don't do that because you end up cutting yourself and stabbing yourself with a hook as well. You're trying to go for that last bit near the hook and you stab yourself with a hook all the time. But that lure is just like, it's a go-to, guys. Yeah, they do. So it's about what I talk about now. So, and especially the football jig head. So normal jig heads or normal paddle tail are great. Cast them out, lift it up. When they fall, they swim back down. They get a lot of fish, right? Curl tails, the tail goes quite long when it goes back down and it becomes a bigger bait. All of a sudden the fish want to eat the whole thing, and they do. But the beauty of any shrimp, particularly Gulp shrimps, is when you lift it up and when you drop it, it doesn't just fall down, it actually glides down, okay? So if you play in a pool or if you get the luxury in the boat and it's clear water, always play with your soft plastic. And then you'll understand even better how to work your soft plastic before you throw it out. Not if you just put S Factor or something on it first though. Get that out in the water and get a fish on it first because you don't want to waste that smell. But yeah, so you just play around, just lift it up a little bit and just watch how it falls, what it does. And then you can work out exactly how far to lift it to get that action to start happening. Whether it be just a little lift, which I've learned about those S Factor ones that went around earlier, those 3D Mino things. It doesn't need much, they sort of just roll and dart around at a very little bit of lift. The shrimp though, you can lift it quite high and you'll see as I said, it just spirals down and glides. It like swims around the joint. Has anyone ever seen that before with the prawn? If you haven't, have a crack at it. But my Gulp shrimp would be my go-to. What about you, Stu, and the shrimps? Oh, you like these things, don't you?
Yeah, Z-Man one's not too bad. I've caught a lot of fish on them. They glide all right. Jackson one's all right.
The Jackson's really good.
I use like this or like a Xeric one or a Samaki one a fair bit as well. You just got to take that weedless hook out, put a jig head straight in it, and they swim not too bad. They're pretty good.
We'll rig one up, eh? We'll pass it around, mate. So, yeah, these fellas are one-off buy type thing. The Xeric do 2 in a packet, similar style. They have that corrugated end on them with its Kevlar strip in the side of it. So quite strong, quite robust, but a lot of action on the tail. So when you lift it up, the tail's also doing this as well. Okay. They still glide as well though. Stewie's quite choosy on his jig heads. We've just about used this one packet for every size, for every lure, because it's the one we keep going to, which was but you know, it's a 3016. So 2016 is probably my go-to. 30 for Stu, it's a bit bigger hook. 3016.
So it's got a rattle in it as well. So if you give it a shake, a lot of people pull that rattle out. I try to leave it in there. But yeah.
So there's a few guys that are cracking on, including us, that kind of are not understanding that rattles do make a difference for flatties. Okay, so not many plastics have had rattles in them prior to the last 6 months. These guys have got it in. S Tackle's just got a new pad tail, like a soft paddle tail with a built-in rattle as well.
Is that out now? Like, is that?
It will be out on the weekend, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think we're getting it tomorrow delivered. Brand new. We'll be the first ones to have it. So, but they do a 3 and a 4 inch, and the white's going to be the go. Yeah. So the rattles are definitely a Flathead dinner bell. Okay. You can buy little glass rattles. I don't know if we've got them down there at the moment.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
We do. Yeah, we've got some down there. So you can insert them, and we got the new tool from Z-Man.
Rattlesnake.
Yeah, rattlesnake. So you actually inject it into the plastic. Little tool. So it's a game changer
So
for
they've been
flathead
using
fishing.
them for like a long time, obviously. Those.
What was it?
Japan, they use them in.
They do in Japan, and obviously got rattles in hard bodies for trolling.
Yeah.
But in plastics, it's never really been the thing, except for people that insert their own one.
Yeah.
But it's hard to insert it because it sort of like pops out all the time.
Yeah, especially when you.
But with that tool, that
Cut
it,
'em in zip.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but that one going around that Stuart's just rigged up has a little chamber for it to sit in. Yeah. Okay. Is there any questions on the prawns at all? All good. Okay, we're just about at the end of our soft plastics here. So the other thing I want to say is size. So do we use little ones, big ones in the prawn as well? Same deal. Look, 3 inch I think is probably the most popular size we sell, and some 3 inch ones like these guys here from Bait Junkie are probably the size of say a 4 inch or even bigger than a 4 inch in say a gulp. They're quite big. It's a big 3 inch, that one, especially compared to some other 3 inch lures. But they're quite big. But look, it just depends on the profile again of the prawns around. It's not, as I said, early in season, the little prawns use small shrimp, 2 inch or 3 inch. Later around now, we use the bigger ones up on the rocks and the flats and stuff like that. Okay. But 3 inch is still my go-to. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on the soft plastics at all? Yes.
Retrieval speed?
Yeah, retrieval speed. Yeah, so it depends on the plastic again, like I said before. So it depends on the current and depends on the wind and how much time you have to get it back before it goes past that point. There's so much in it. But look, if I'm casting up current and I've got a long cast, I'll just take my time and just work it. As long as I know it's not going to go past there. If the current's quite strong, I'm going to work it a fair bit quicker. And I always make sure it hits the bottom before I lift it up again though. It's really important. If you do lift up and then take up and lift up again, it doesn't get to the bottom, you don't get nowhere near the fish, amount of fish. Let's do add to that at all, mate?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it depends what profile you're using. Like Dougie said before, if you look at a prawn or something like that in a bucket and you're trying to grab it, it's real erratic. But when that prawn's out there swimming, it's not erratic. So it doesn't, I just try to make it look natural. Like, I mean, prawns and stuff like that do a lot of traveling straight with no real movement. So I'll do a lot of slow winding, stop, maybe a few little hops and a little slow wind to take it up. Not a lot of real fast, sharp jerks because that prawn out there is not always going crazy. And fish know that. I mean, they're pretty smart. They see a lot of stuff. So.
And that's the same with like paddle tails and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
Same
paddle
deal, yeah.
tails still like it just looks like a little bait fish and you can just cruise around. Something with a straight tail butt, like a jerk shad, you've got to put the action in. So you've got to work that a bit quicker. So
I'll pass this to around. This is a classic example. These are actually really good lures too, guys. Magbite, the Japanese. That's the size profile we start off, say, around June, July. And it's the size we'll start using now. So you've got the two to see the comparison.
Yeah, those jerk shads, you really got to work those to make.
you've got to put the action in, yeah. Yeah.
What do you reckon about
Wigan, yeah.
when you're casting on cone? Do you reckon as soon as it passes you, like as soon as your lure passes you on the cone,
Wind it
Wind
up.
it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
use that instead before pulling it up cone and trying to work it?
That's
Oh,
right.
really? Yeah.
So sometimes we'll do a short cast if we know the current's really strong, or if we know that it's going to get too much wind curvature in it, and we just work close quarters. Yeah. Okay. So you just got to get closer to the bank. And if you're shore based, you just got to work out trying to find a spot that's got the wind behind you, preferably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you said try and match the bait segment. So, for example, you know a spot that's reasonably good producing spot and your water's a bit dirty. Do you look at your lure colours then, soft plastic colours, and try and match a particular colour for the water conditions?
Yeah, I think
Good
if
call.
it's really dirty water, I just try to go like a solid colour plastic. It could be black, but it's solid colour, or it could be white, but it's a solid colour. So try not to get anything too transparent, because that solid colour is going to cast a good silhouette. So as well, it might be better using a paddle tail because it's got a bit more noise in the water. You know, you've got that thump of the tail, it's swimming a bit harder. Whereas a jerk shad, you've got to put the action in, but there's not a lot of noise on the sink. Yeah, there's no tail ticking away or anything like that.
So in clear water, use like whites, sparkles or clears. If it's dirty water, as Stewie said, opaque type colours, or like a neon type standout, or pink maybe, or something like that that's quite bright. Again, that depends on the bait. It doesn't match the bait, right? You don't see any pink bait fish swimming around. But it is obviously visible to them. Flathead is blind as. So unless you bonk them on the head nearly, it just goes past them. They're like that type of fish. And there are fish where you do a long cast or a short cast, doesn't matter, and you talk to your mate, and you just take out the line, you got to lift it. Oh, there's one already on there, because there's a land right on top of his head and he's just gone gulp and eaten it, right? And that happens a lot of the time. But that's a lucky cast where you've landed on his head, okay? But if you get that action right, especially if it rolls past the front of him, because his eyes are at the top of his head and he sees it, then he'll nail it, yeah. But if it's over there, I don't think their eyes are too good looking that way, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I completely disagree.
Stewie's version.
I completely disagree with that. I reckon flathead have like pretty good eyesight.
I don't.
If they're going to bury and they just leave their eyes out, A, they've got to be doing something, otherwise they'd just have sand over their eyes because they wouldn't know. And B,
They
the
keep their
amount
eyes
of times
closed.
I've done.
You see their eyelids?
Hey, no, I haven't seen a flathead's eyelids. That's right, because it's always open because they're always using them. The other thing is, if you do a lot of shallow water fishing, which over the last couple of years I've really kind of focused on stuff under a metre, the amount of times that you're throwing a hard body in particular, or like a bigger plastic or whatever, over shallow water, and you see a fish from potentially 20 metres over that way come up and come over and eat your lure, that's not through chance. They've seen it.
It's true using a lure that big.
They've seen it. Doesn't matter.
Silent lure, or is that-
Doesn't matter. No, most of them have rattles in them
Yeah.
too. So,
It could be the noise.
well, Dougie's probably going to tell you that they're deaf and blind. So
No, they're not deaf.
Know.
No, they're not deaf.
Depends which ones.
I spoke to
He's
them.
asked a couple
They
of them.
answered back.
Yeah, but no, look, I think they're very. The other thing is if they're blind, why does one colour work better than the other?
It's because some are colourblind, some are not.
That's a very good answer. Yeah.
And why does UV work better than UV
Well,
not?
that's exactly right. So years ago, like probably about 8 years ago, when I started getting into it a lot, everyone said that fish didn't see colour; they saw silhouette.
Go out
So you'd
next
go-
Time, next time you go out, use ones with no rattles, silent ones, and see how you go then. See
Yeah,
if
well-
you're coming from 20 metres.
Yeah, no, well they have.
'Cause I
but,
reckon a rattle, like that changed my game.
Yeah. Well, like I used to fish slapsticks a lot. So 9-inch plastic, rig and weedless with a stinger. It's a bit old school now, but it's still a thing.
Yep.
And they never had rattles. And I saw fish from 30 metres coming and eating them. But, well, yeah, that's right. But then, yeah, rattle I think is definitely another aspect. I think it's definitely not a disadvantage.
No.
But there's days when they're real flighty that I think it is a disadvantage.
Yeah, it's been days.
So-
I've used rattles and
Yeah.
haven't got anything and got them.
Yeah, the rattle pops out and you start catching fish by chance. So, I mean, it's one of those things, but yeah, I definitely think they see a lot. Yeah. Because the other thing is, why don't you use 400-pound leader?
Oh, the action sounds good. Too stiff.
But how do they see the action?
They feel the vibes. And talking about vibes, okay, next is vibes. Any questions on soft plastics? I don't like that debate. It's a terrible one. Okay, any questions on soft plastics, so folks? We're going to tell you how to... Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll just show you how much scent you should put on. So, S factor, say for example, we've got 4 different scents here, 5 actually, and we'll tell you about each one. So first one's S factor.
Hey, Dougie, is that UV?
It is.
How do they see it?
They asked them one time, you like UV? They said yes. Is it a unanimous vote? Give us UV, they said. Okay. Do you want to see how UV works? Actually, do you want to put that light on?
Yeah, where is it?
We'll see. Is there a light there, folks? Sorry. Do one of you gentlemen want to... Just a gentleman in the green shirt, the hat on. Oh, the young fellow there, mate. Good. Just turn that light off for a sec, buddy. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of this here. I don't know if it'll get down, because normally when you open up a tube of this stuff, it has the oil on top, and then the enhancer's just underneath it. We'll just put a little bit on here. So actually, I'll just throw my finger first here. Stu's going to hold it up. So you can't see much there, right? Put this on.
I just felt like a flathead. I couldn't see it.
I'll put it on my finger now. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, it lights up. Yeah, so the flatties do the same thing. Yeah, it's sort of like a greeny sort of light. Yeah. It's different, okay? So it's the same on the flathead. So I can see the UV colours here too, by the way.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, like, while we've got this, colours years ago used to be like pink and green used to be one of the some of the better colours. Changes colour. But now we know that pink and green is actually very UV. So,
you see the difference? Yeah, so it's very green, very different. So it's actually clear, but it comes up green underneath that light.
One there that's glowing up white.
yeah, so that's one of those Samaki ones. So that's very bright. Very. That's that Rapala one. So you can see that it's quite bright. That's the McCarthy one. So that's
this is probably going to be the most brightest of all. So you see it looks like fluoro green, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, mate, if you don't mind hitting that light again, buddy. If you don't mind.
Oh, you can kind of see
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's the colour of it. Thanks, mate. Awesome. Cheers, buddy.
Yeah.
See the colour? So that's the difference. It's brown, but it's fluoro green. So that's what UV means. I don't know how they ask the fish. I don't know. Someone's asked the fish. I don't know who. Do you like UV? Can you see UV? But
Study on that, I think.
yeah, but apparently they've got the answer out of them. They said yes, we like UV. So most stuff these days somehow UV enhanced. How much do you put on here? So I need to put another hook in one of these, but I've got one more left through. It's a bit big, this one though.
That's right.
Until I'm getting 60, I'll put my eyes on. So when I put S factor on, I try not to put it down near the tail, okay? And I put it on definitely around the hook where it comes out of the plastic, and up on the head area. So I'll put it on. I'll put a little dab like that. That's all I use. I can't see it down the back, but it's about the size of
Half a pea.
half a pea, if that. Okay.
Is that true, Stu? Is that all it is?
Yeah, probably. He ends up with more on his clothes and his pants and the lure, but...
And then Stu says, jump in the water and track the flatties for me. So then I'll put it around like that and like that, around there, and then I might put a little bit on the bottom here, but I don't put it anywhere down this end of town. So I don't want little flatties just grabbing it and grabbing it and grabbing it and not hooking up. I want them to go for that where the hook is there. Okay, that way, sorry. Yeah, does that make sense?
What would be your pick of scent?
I'm an S factor guy. Stewie's a different person.
More ways than one, apparently, by that comment.
I'll send this around. You can smell it. It has a nose smell pretty well. This one here. So John Dunphy and a mad scientist, nice guy, worked together for many years developing this. And besides having all the secret herbs and spices, it has pheromones in it. So pheromones, you can't smell it fish can though, and it makes them want to eat. Okay, it's a bit like us smelling Hungry Jacks when we drive past or something, and you smell the smell. So for them, we can't smell it, but they can. A bit like the UV thing. They asked them, what do you like to smell? They said, we like to smell pheromones. So it does work, guys. It tracks them definitely, okay? Snapper,
Any fish.
bass, doesn't matter, whatever fishing you're doing,
I was watching somebody
works good.
jigging for bait fish.
Yeah, put it in your bait jigs.
Putting it just on the-
I've been doing that for years,
Yeah.
100%, if I haven't got any pilters or anything. The next I'm going to show you, is that going around? That's got pretty,
It's all slimy.
yeah, slimy, yeah. Anyhow.
You get the picture.
You
Put
get
it
the
around
picture.
the hook end.
So this one here, this is the gulp one, okay? Has anyone used the gulp one yet? Okay, it's really good, but it's really bad because it stays on your fingers and it stays on the steering wheel of your boat or stays on the grip of your rod.
Oily.
Yeah, but it stays on longer, and it's got a bit of a smell. That Berkeley
Gulp smell.
gulp / Berkeley bait smell. Yeah. So this one here, same deal again. This is going to catch fish. This one, let me do. By the time we finish it, but it's a little bit harder to put on. But when you put it on, it's like a paste. So again, I'm putting it on just near the hook area here, and even put it on the hook. Okay, and if I got a bit with my fingers, I might just wipe it again on underneath side of it. But that's it. So
This goes on the shirt.
yeah, wipe it off in
Pants.
pants, whatever.
Pants. The gulp goes on the pants, apparently.
Yeah. So that's the gulp and the S factor. Now, Stewie, you talk about this.
I
stuff,
like bait pop. So bait pop's one of the new ones. It's only come out probably last year, mid last year. There's a swag of different flavours and colours and all that stuff. A, it looks good. I like it. Looks good in your tackle box. It's nice and neat.
Looks like his lipstick, I recommend.
B, there's three. Look, I'm still trying to figure it out. There's a soft scent, a hard scent, and a medium scent. What scent do you use in which bite situation? I'm getting a pretty good rough idea about it.
I know it works because Stewie catches a lot of fish.
I'll let
So-
you guys figure it out. But it's one of those things, you kind of, if you're going to dive into it, there are UV colours and there's colours that aren't. My favourites, ice. I use ice out a fair bit. It's not UV. And I use that monkey's milk one a fair bit too. It's not UV. But if it is a harder bite and I want to put a highlight on a lure or something, I use something like that chartreuse colour. It's mega UV and I can put a stripe on a lure or a bar on a lure somewhere. If fish are scared, they get fright bars. If you've ever reef fished up north, if you pull up a coral trout or something like that, or you that type of thing, they have fright bars on them and they get agitated, they change. You can make your lure look like it's doing that with a scent, with colour in it.
So is that is that like the hard scent? Is it like
Yeah, well, there's mild ones that are UV as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's got sparkle in it. The biggest thing is with this is you know when to put more on because you can't see the sparkle on your lure. There's no sparkle in S Factor, there's no sparkle in the Gulp one. So it's easy to reapply. You don't need much, it's pretty strong. And I've been using a little tube like that for a year and a half now and I still haven't gone through half. And I put it on nearly everything. Yeah, so it is really good. I just think it stays on a bit better. The other thing is S Factors get into that age now. Fish have smelt it before. This is new. It's definitely, they eat it. They eat it off the bottom. Yeah, it's like when gulps first came out, you used to be able to throw it out, and if you got a wind knot or a tangle or something like that, a fish would swim along and eat it off the bottom while you're undoing the tangle. Whereas now, it's just not quite as the same. So S Factor, again, when that first came out, fish just used to eat it. It's not the same as it used to be. It still works really well.
Put it this way: if I'm
evolved?
say halfway up jumping in my boat and I've left my S Factor at home, I never want to go home and get it. That's how dependent I become on it. So to me, it's like a big game changer. But
Yeah.
and I put it on about every third cast. Okay. So a tube will last me about probably
4 days.
probably like but that's like 10-hour day fishing. So 40 hours, say, or 50 hours of fishing, which is a lot of casts.
And that stuff you like, Stewie, they designed that sort of so you can see it on your live.
Yeah, so if you got live scope, it makes your bait or your plastic look bigger on live scope. It reflects that rays a lot better. I don't have live scope. I just use it for the scent purpose. Yeah.
What are those little tubes were?
About $18. It is a bit dearer.
Money.
Yeah, that's right. Well, put it this way. I use that, and that Wilson comp that we just had, in the first hour we caught 10 fish, and there's 3 of us on the boat, and I caught 9 of them.
And they won't
So
use it.
Okay.
they don't use bait pole because they don't believe in
I'll
it.
take back what he just said. there.
So there you go.
Okay.
That's
So
right.
anyhow,
But I only spoke to the flathead that could see. He got the one blind one. He got the one that couldn't see. He got the skill.
bait dye. Okay, you can dye the colour. So if you're worried about in dirty water or whatever, and you haven't got any good colours around, you got some of this stuff, you can actually change the colour. That's true. This lid was off and I grabbed it out and it went all over me, but that's all right.
How much is that little bottle?
This is made in the States, so I'll give the first hint away. About $20 your price, yeah. But that'll last you forever. So it's a bit hard to see there now, but you just paint the different colours on the thing. White would be the classic example. I'm going to do white here. That's not a gulp version. But anyhow, that's not the right colour, so it's already got red in this one. But it does change, it dries out and stays on there supposedly.
It also doubles as Dougie dye because his hands are pretty red right now.
Yeah. Oh, that was before I opened it up. It went everywhere. Anyhow, but guys, I don't use it. Okay, we sell it, but I don't use
How
it.
much is that bottle now?
I might start using it. But look, guys, if I was you, it'd be Berkeley S Factor or bait pop if you're going to give it a crack.
We sell ProCure a lot too. A lot of
Yeah,
guys
we
like
do.
ProCure. There's
Yeah,
different
ProCure's
flavours
good.
in it. Guys get a bit superstitious, put shrimp one on the shrimp pattern or whatever, pilch it on the pilly pattern, but yeah.
We'll just pass some around, Stu. Is the S Factor gone?
Yeah, S Factor's already gone.
Oh, gone around? Yeah, cool. So remember, guys, so every 3 casts, you put a bit on. And if you do get a fish on, I'd put it on straight after I get that fish. After I check my lead if it needs retiring. Okay. So any questions on that side of things? Everyone's good?
Yeah, why would you use bait dye rather than changing your lure?
Because sometimes you might only have dark colours in the boat, whatever it might be. But like I never do it, mate. I'd rather have a different colour lure. Yeah. And it's messy and whatever else on top of that.
Yeah, with the gulp scent as well, it's a bit stickier.
Mm.
Would you do it like, say, like every 5 casts or 6 casts? Rather than
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so probably even 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to remember though, when you're dragging it, especially if it's dragging on sand, it's going to pull it off pretty easy, right? So, but S Factor you'd either do at least every 2 or 3 casts. 3 casts. Gulp probably 5 or 6.
Notice there was no fish. Fish tail.
Fishtail, curl tail? No, we got some here.
Fish paddle.
Fish paddle tail.
You know, like the
Like
ones,
that.
instead of being like a paddle like this, you have a fish-shaped tail.
Like that sort of shape. Oh, like
Those S tackle ones went around.
yeah, the S tackle, but S tackle's got
Yeah.
the shape on it.
Okay.
Yeah, but S tackle's what would be my recommendation, definitely in that style. Yeah, they're just so good. Different to that. That's a
That
paddle
one
tail.
under there, Dougie.
Which one? Oh yeah, that one there.
No, it's all like the ones with that have got like a heavier, that
Heavier.
rattle side to side instead of a paddle.
Like a wedge tail.
Yeah,
Yeah, nah, not many people are doing
Not many
them
people
now.
are doing it. No, no.
they've just gone out of.
Yeah.
If you are using paddle tails, this is a strange paddle that doesn't have a paddle tail on it. And if you are using paddle tail and you get bitten off by a tailor and you try and catch fish on that plastic, it's very difficult. But you put one on that doesn't have a paddle tail and it seems to work. I don't know the philosophy there, but there must be something to it. But if you are using a paddle tail and you get the tail bitten off, just discard it, put another one straight back on. Okay. Stu, let's go to soft vibes. We're going to vibes, right?
Yep.
So we're running out of time. So vibes are the next part of the equation. Flat shad, have we talked about those before?
Well, flat shad's
Yeah.
just another paddle tail plastic. They're kind of hollow and they've got slits in them and stuff, so they fold away really good in a fish's mouth. So you do generally get a pretty good hookup rate, but definitely pull that weedless hook out and put a jig head in.
Has anyone used these before at all, flat shad?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
they're quite
paddle all
good.
right,
There's an
though.
art to using them though, and you got to use like a normal jig head in, like Stuart said. They're hollow belly, and the belly sort of pops in and out. That makes sense. It's quite weird.
As you retrieve it.
Yeah, as it falls down, it pops out of it. Yes, mate.
Are you guys just totally against weedless rigs?
Hate them. Yeah. So yes. Yeah. Only
look-
because of hook exposure. If you look at a flatty, they inhale. They don't bite. Look, they're not like a tailor. Like a tailor will bite it and eat it.
Yeah.
A flathead inhales it.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if they inhale and you miss that bite,
Yeah.
it's going to spit back out. There's no hook. Whereas if they go to spit back out a jig head, you've run the chance of it still get in there. Yeah.
So when Stewie's using like weedless type, sluggo type style things over the weed, it's got more paraphernalia of trebles hanging out than some of
Yeah,
the
I've got
earrings.
2 trebles hanging
So-
off.
So,
Yeah.
so because the weed is, the chance for hooking up are very slim, mate.
Yeah.
There are different fish. They're not like a bass where they sort of like crush it and get hooked up sort of thing. And the plastic's quite chunky, so it can't really fall down the hook and expose the hook too much. It covers up the whole gape. So yeah, it's different.
Yeah. If you want to
For
fish
flatties, it's different.
If you
It's
want
not
to fish
very
a
good.
plastic through weed, go a lighter jig head. You can bounce it over the weed. It doesn't pummel and go into the
And
weed as
take
much.
the weed off the hook and throw it back out again.
Yeah.
In other words, stick with normal hook jiggheads. Yeah.
Just fish the sand flats.
Yeah, that's
So-
right. Yeah.
To give you some idea, mate, I don't know if there's any downstairs. I've actually got these little ones here. But I use a thing called Dance and Jack, which we've got more coming next week. I just ordered them. But they're like a double assist, a little baby assist. And what I do is I'll do one now for you. I'll pass it around. And it's a secret, but it's on the weed beds you just never miss. But unfortunately, you do get hooked up the weed a bit. But you put that on before you put the plastic on, right? And it's not on there by any other means. So it can fall off maybe on a massive fish, but I've never had one fall off ever. Thanks to it. And they're just so good. So it's like 2 little assist hooks sticking underneath, and sometimes they will get hooked up on the plastic. But when you do your twitching, whatever, you get so many fish on the little assist more than the
thing with those little
hook.
assists where I'll have that and I'll just catch the slightest amount of the plastic
Yeah.
and then have it so that the hook's on the side coming out.
Yeah. Okay. So it's
So
like,
the plastic's like that.
like, yep.
And then just sort of just catch the side of it.
Yeah, and it works okay for you.
Okay. Yeah, well then it doesn't fall down.
Yeah. I'd rather have them exposed, but
I'd rather not fish them because they catch too much weed. Yeah.
When you guys go out, you just go for numbers? Or you going for... 'cause I just-
numbers and size.
I like just to chase size ones now because I know that I'm always going to get little ones that eat a big lure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every cast.
Are you still letting them hit the bottom, or are you kind of hovering them?
Yeah. I still got to hit the bottom a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like I caught too many fish on little lures to outdo, and definitely more than I caught on big lures. If that makes sense. And it's because like we're fishing, there's little and big. And if you specifically want to chase big fish, then yeah, maybe target them with bigger lures, I guess. But I want to get other fish as well, so I use both. I don't know if it's going to go in because I don't know if it'll go over that part there, Stu. You need the Dance and Jack one. No, won't work. Okay, we need Dance and Jacks. Well, when we get them in, I'll show you. I don't have any in stock at the moment, sorry. They're sold out. They're good.
What's that? Yeah, assist hooks?
Yeah, assist hook with a loop on it, not the ring.
Yeah, you've been out of stock
Yeah.
of them for a long time.
Yeah, they've managed to get them. No, because River to Sea, who's the company we buy, they've just changed to decoys, changed to new people, which is Samaki. I think he's got them in sold the other day, Paul. Did you get it on?
Might go.
It's got to go right up to the other end, over the other side of the metal.
They've just got a little split ring on them, haven't they?
Yeah.
More chance of that falling off the hook than just a loop.
Stu's going to give it a crack. The beauty of the loop is that it can't fall over the centre lead part, but otherwise it's going to sit on the other side of it and it might fall off, you know. Oh,
It's rough, but
that's right. That's how it
it'll
works. Yeah,
work.
that's how it is. Yeah. So I'll pass this around, guys. Just be careful of little hooks, but you'll see what we're talking about. Thanks, Stu. Well done, mate. Okay. It has a bit of Stewie stuff sticking out the end of it too. So, is something to it, Stu? Yeah. Okay, vibes. So we're going to go to vibes. So has anyone here done vibes before for flatties? Vibing. And had luck? Yep, had luck. So vibes are, as we were saying before, if they're not taking the plastics, we'll throw a vibe out and try vibe. Not necessarily using them in where we're going to catch specifically big flatties, but definitely where we're going to catch big and small flatties. And what's the biggest you caught on vibes, Stu?
I think high 70s.
High 70s, yeah. A lot of 60s and 70s. I don't think I've got an 80 on a vibe yet, but definitely a lot of 60s and 70s are consistent, good sized fish. And they're a very fast action lure, if that makes sense. So you actually get to do a lot more cast because they sink a lot quicker. You're not waiting for that go down. So when you lift up, and you always try and keep in touch with it the whole time as it goes back down. Don't just drop your rod tip and let it fall down. What about you, Stu? How do you do it?
I think I dropped the rod tip.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, try and keep in contact with it as it goes down.
It just depends. Like if you do
depends on the
keep in
depth.
contact with it, it does definitely probably foul less. But the flatties will eat it better if you give them a bit of loose line because they can suck it. They can pull it in. Yeah.
But when they hook up on those, it's very hard for them to get off. Your hook up is always 100%. Okay, so vibes, I just do 2 lists, one like dunk. I don't know how you do yours, Stu. How do you do yours? Mate?
Yeah, I think I'd.
You shake it a bit too.
Yeah, I'll go one slower lift and then a double hop at top. So it swims and then goes darts and then sinks back down. Vibes are one of those things. If you're going to fish a small vibe, like whether it be a Xeric or whether it be a Samaki, they're probably the biggest and the best two. I'll pass them around. They've got very small hooks. I believe you need a different rod for that. You need something softer. Problem is if you run your standard real stiff rod, you pull too many hooks out, you bend too many hooks. Vibes, you catch a lot of fish in, like just the little bits of skin around their mouth or like the meaty parts in their lips and stuff like that. They're not necessarily one that when you set the hook, it goes straight through the top of the drawer. So it's just never going to happen. It's not that type of lure. It's not a single big J hook or like jig head hook going through. I definitely use a lot softer rod with them. Yeah.
Yeah, so most of the vibe rods we sell are, when we do sell a lot of guys that do vibing, it's normally 7.2 to 7.6 and soft tip.
Yeah.
Like, especially those.
Yeah, I still like
9
under 7 foot, but softer.
You've got 2 choices all
Just
the time with
softer.
us. So it's going to confuse you more.
That's the rod that I use for vibes. So it's 6'8" and it's soft in the tip. Still loads pretty quick. I troll with the same rod and I throw little plastics with the same rod. But yeah, like that's a little vibe. That's a hard one. But if the bait's small, vibes are pretty good because they do small ones and there's heaps of hooks in it. So.
And it works.
But yeah. So just small stuff.
Do you have like a kilo, 1 to 3 or 2 to 4 on that at all, the rod?
This one's, I think, it's a pretty light one.
1 to 3, probably, or 2 to 4.
This one's
even that category, even up to 2 to 5, be right, mate?
How long's that?
Yeah.
6'8". Yeah, I cut it down a little bit.
You don't?
Yeah. It's actually a 6 to 12 pounder, but it's just real light. So it's 3 to 6 kilo, but it's very light in the tip. So if you're going to get like another rod for it, you just go say 7 foot, general all rounder, 7 foot, 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 kilo.
So,
under 2 to 4.
So one thing we didn't mention about earlier with rods, it's very confusing, but it confuses us. Every manufacturer has a different guideline. So some manufacturers are pretty strong in their thinking that we're going to get back breakages, and so we underrate our rods so they don't ever break. Does that make sense? So what should be classed as like 10 to 17 pound will actually be like 6 to 10 pound. And it's a very stiff 6 to 10 pound. So for us, we feel it and we know you can go that length, that size line on that rod, or that application or cast that lure. They say they always underrate the casting too.
Well, your lure weight.
Sorry?
Your lure weight.
And lure weight, but it's because they get less breakages because people downsize everything to suit. So please don't look at the size of what's on the rod. Listen to what we tell you, and that's what we recommend you can use, okay? Yeah. When you go into like BCF, they wouldn't know. They just say, that's what you should be buying, but it's not what you should be buying, okay? But some people do it right. Some manufacturers do it right. Yeah. Okay, so that's the vibes. Okay, anything else, says Stu, on that stuff? Okay, so we've caught all the fish, smashed it. Next thing we're going to do, we've got the fish, I haven't caught the fish yet, we've got the fish close to the boat. You need to have a good net, okay? Doesn't matter if you're shore-based. If you're shore-based, you can sort of try and flick them up onto the sand, but most that's when they break the line, they fall off and swim back out again. So I recommend a net always. There are all different types of nets. There's string nets, there's rubber-coated string nets, and then there's rubber nets. So my suggestion always is a rubber net. Rubber nets are by far the best because they don't hook up as bad. In saying that though, if you want to always get the fish, the string nets sit nicest in the water and they're the quickest to run through the water. If you don't mind cutting your hook out or getting out later, then go the string nets because they're the best. But otherwise you've got to go rubber net like this style here, and it needs to be at least that depth. Okay, if not deeper. Okay, that one there, I'd put fish up to probably,
It's a bit small, then.
yeah, 70 in there, or 70, 80 maybe. You'd make a metre fit in there if you got a metre, but it'll be half hanging out. You sort of do like the throw it in the boat. Which I did last year, lost a big fish too, didn't I? Yeah, tennis racket. But the rubber type one is the easiest to get your hooks out of. Okay, but it's a little bit slower through the water. If you got someone who fishes with you and they lose a lot of fish at the net, my suggestion is learn the net going fish because it starts arguments.
I just lift them in.
Hold them in, do you?
Yeah.
The other thing, when you got the fish in, you got the net, you got them in the boat. The first thing you got to do is put a set of lip grips in its mouth. Okay, if you try and grab that flathead, he's going to spike you, guarantee, especially around the thumb area here. And no matter how good you are, they say do the comfort lift, that sort of crap, it doesn't work. Okay, they spike you. They want to spike you. So put a lip grip in it, whatever type it may be, into the mouth, into the bottom part of the mouth, hook it in, then get a pair of pliers. If you got like a jig head, you don't really need pliers, you just pop it out, right? If you're using trebles and trolling lures or hard bodies, you need to use pliers. It's too dangerous when they do that head shake. Even though you got it on a lip grip, they'll still do the head shake, and you're not getting another hook in your hand here somewhere again. Okay, little hooks aren't too bad to get out, but they still hurt. So, lip grips number one. Doesn't matter if it's a cheap pair or better pair, whatever. Next tools Stewie's got here. If you do get one that's down the throat and it's right down its throat, that's the problem with some of these bigger ones that are like 80 or whatever. You're meant to throw them back 75 and over, and quite often they will have the lure right down. They just inhale it, right? At that time, if it's too hard to get out, don't try and get it out. Just cut it off. Let them try and get it out because you'll end up killing them. Okay, if you're going to take it home, that's fine, but I wouldn't take home 75 in case you get stuck with it with the water police, with the fisheries. When you're at that point of using that there, and Stewie's about to say, or if you want to get a photo, whatever, have just a set of garden gloves or some type of glove that we sell, whatever, doesn't matter, on the boat or on the shore in your bucket, whatever, in your pants or whatever. Because if you try and grab a flathead, if you've ever grabbed one, they'll rip about 5 layers through of here and on here, but particularly on your thumb. So we've all done it. I've done it many, many, many times. So a glove will just stop all that happening, and you've got more control of the fish as well. Yes?
Would you be able to give us a quick demo on the different rod action we're using?
Yeah, definitely going to do it right now. It's nearly done, nearly there. And it'll be Stewie's action versus Doug's action. You can try both. As I said, you guys are lucky tonight. You get two versions. And then hook out gun, this little hook out gun. This is really good, particularly for trebles. They're very good, yeah. So you just hook the hook in the end here, pull on the trigger, it locks it in, and then just twist it out. If I got a little flatty on, I don't even touch it. I just grab my line, grab the hook, go like that, and it just falls into the water over the side of the boat or off the shore. Stewie.
If you're going to kill flathead, which Dougie keeps all... No, I don't do it. Dougie keeps all of his flathead and he never kills them, he never bleeds them. I feel so sorry for him. They die slowly in a bucket.
I've got a live well.
That's right. They slowly starve of oxygen in there. And that's probably why Dougie doesn't catch many now. He's got the flathead juju curse or something. But anyway, look, try to brain spike them. If you want to keep a flathead, the eating quality is so much better if you can brain spike it and bleed it. It honestly is. Brain spike it, bleed it, and ice it straight away, and it's like 20 times better.
Minus,
About
Heaps better.
any fish is,
Yeah.
even though they say pelagics, but
Yeah, that's right. Any fish. Yeah.
minus the bleed when I fill them. So they're bending up a bit.
You
Look,
gotta
guys, I don't always keep flathead. If I do, I like to eat them and I'll keep a few for a feed. I don't keep lots. But they taste so good. They're so good. And if you've never had sashimi flathead, try it. So good. Because they're oily. So really, really good. Yeah. Very expensive in Japan. Okay. There's one thing we missed before we get to the rod action. Is these things. So this is new on the block.
So swim baits and stuff like that, or like bigger plastics
Soft
on the flats.
swim baits.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to fish this stuff in over a metre of water. You need to be up in the shallows on high tide. Yeah, it's very hard. You can weight them and sink them down and stuff like that, but it's just easier.
Yep.
In the shallow stuff, you will need a heavier rod with it, something stiffer, bit heavier main line, just because they're quite heavy to cast.
what sort of grams they run in?
I think you'd probably be looking at about 1/2 ounce or 3/4 minimum. They're 1 ounce.
One ounce and 1/5.
Yeah. So for the little ones, yeah, about 1/2 ounce.
I'll pass this around. So these have got that new honeycomb effect at the end.
11. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 30 something. It's got that honeycomb effect. So it's brand new out from Berkeley. They've got the typical Berkeley smell, but the honeycomb gives it really good action, slow retrieve. Very slow retrieve.
So you only fish them in real shallow water.
Correct.
Generally,
Correct. Yeah. Just like you do a hard body or like a split minnow.
Yeah.
And these are just another version of it.
These actually swim really good, but they're quite buoyant. So you can put some nail weights or like a bit of weight in them, just to keep them under.
And they call them soft glides.
Yeah.
That's about as small as you'd use. Yeah.
So is it the same sort of action?
Yep, same action.
Nah.
Oh, they
slow
don't, no,
wind.
but they don't have a
Don't
bib.
do any.
They don't
jerk.
have a bib, so you just got to slow wind, a little bit to switch. They'll sort of dart like that. Yeah.
Sort of concentrate on the pulls more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just they'll get back to up the back here. We'll start it here actually, mate. So Stu, if you've got a big flatty following your glide bait or whatever you're using, and you see it, do you stop and pause or do you get it going a bit?
Generally slow it down first. I'll slow it down or stop it. If it doesn't eat it, then I'll start doing erratic stuff to try to make it excited. Yeah. It just depends on the fish. Sometimes if you go hard straight out, they shy away. They don't like it.
They don't like expending energy too, like in
Not
chasing.
Yeah,
The
some
bigger
of them
ones
do.
quite-
Yeah, they're pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of
That-
drone footage on Flathead these days. So in the last 6 months, there's heaps of videos. So if you want, like jump on YouTube or something like that, and you'll see a lot of this type of stuff getting thrown around, and you'll see how they react.
So you reckon at 20 metres, they're going to go for a 50mm prawn or like a 5-inch?
Oh, if they want to swim 20 metres, I reckon they're going to go for something decent.
Yeah.
They're not going to go for something tiny. Yeah, yeah. Tiny stuff comes here and there and everywhere.
Yeah.
Big stuff, it's worth working for. Yeah. Yeah.
Stu, if we're going to talk to them about your rod action on, say, just your soft plastics and
Yeah,
your
so
prawns.
just little stuff.
So
yeah.
while she's doing that, I'm going to draw a scenario and we're quickly going to go fishing, okay?
So just standard soft plastics fishing, that's just a little 1/4 ounce with a little paddle tail. So pretty standard type stuff. As Dougie said before, and I'm the same, I like to throw it as far as I can. But having said that, I'm always trying to throw to something. So I might be throwing to a sand hole in a weed bed, or I might be throwing to a weed edge, or maybe a tree on a sandbank. Flatheads sit around certain areas for a certain reason. It's always going to be an ambush point. So I like to throw to it, let it sink, I'll throw just over it, let it sink down. I'll wind up the slack so I'm relatively on contact, and I always shake the rod and I wind. So as I work the lure, I might go like 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'll take up a spin of line as well. And therefore, I know that my retrieve on the reel is around about 1/2 metre to a metre. So I've moved that lure 1/2 metre to a metre, but I've made it look like it's injured and wounded and stuff like that along the way, and then I'll let it sink back down. The key is letting it sink back down between those actions. That's just standard little paddle tail stuff. If I was going to work, say, a jerk shad or a straight tail minnow, I'm going to do very similar, but I might, with my little twitches, I might go a bit faster because there's no little paddle tail working. So I'm going to work it a bit faster, bit more flick, and that lure's going to do more action because that lure has no action on its own. I've got to put all of that action into that lure.
That's just lure specific.
Yeah, just specific to change it up between ones, yeah.
And on your paws, like, you pause.
I'll let it hit the bottom and I might sit it there for a second or two and then I'll work it again.
Right? You don't pause.
It's pretty constant, yeah. But yeah, I don't like massive pauses just because I like fishing fairly fast.
You like the quick retrieve,
Yeah.
get back out again.
Yeah. If I can have 3 casts in the time that Dougie might have one, I've got 3 times the amount of chance. That's what I think about. Yeah. But as we were said before, I think the biggest thing is you just need to try to have, if you're fortunate enough to have a few rods, you'll always find a rod that throws a certain lure better. It's definitely 1% stuff. It's not the be all or end all. You can buy the one rod, as Dougie said, or if you've got one rod and that's all you want to start with and that's all you want to use, go ahead. You're definitely going to catch fish, but you'll find different lures work better on different rods. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Any questions on that at all? Is that all right? Okay, so I'll do this scenario here. Imagine this is our jumping pin somewhere. It's a good spot to me, but I don't know where. No, I wish it was up the jumping pin. So let's just say the current's coming in this way from the pin bar. Okay, so do you use the electric or do you always work up into the current or do you work down with the current? That's personally, some guys do it one way, some guys do it the other way, but they're always casting up current and hopping it back down with the current. Whether you're going up into the current, but still casting up and hopping it back down to you, or whether you're sort of going, drifting with the current slowly, but keeping the boat going forward, so the boat's always into it, but your electric's ticking over just slowly, but you're still going backwards. Does that make sense? It gives you more chance to cover the ground a bit better and work it thoroughly. Stu, which way do you like to do it with?
I like to, if I was going to fish this spot, there's a
Would you
few.
start up here or down there and work your way up, or would you start here and work and go nose pointing into it, but keep working back that way?
It's hard. I'd always work into the current and I'd throw up and bring it back with it.
Correct.
But if I knew that this was going to flood first rather than this, I'd start up this end and fish this and then move back down and fish this second patch.
Correct.
Because I know that those fish are going to move up onto this part of the flat first because this spot's still going to be dry and this is going to be underwater. So you've got to think, fish are very opportunistic. They move up into the shallow to feed, and the first one up there is going to feed the hardest. So you want to be in an area as it floods. You don't want to be in an area after it's flooded.
When you say floods, like, say, as soon as it's sort of like water's covering that,
Oh,
say,
yeah.
Yes, a couple 100 mil.
Yeah, maybe 200-300 mil.
Moved in by that stage.
Yeah.
Sort of thing?
Yeah. If there's enough water for them to cover their back, they can be up there. Yeah.
So in this scenario here, imagine that's the bank's well exposed here, as Stewie said. There's a couple of drains there. And from here to here is like, say, 100 metres, 150 metres, say. And that's about 400 metres long, or 300 metres long. And you've got this little drain here. It's still like just, maybe got this much water in it, right? At this end here and this end here. Big patch of weed there. This one here is a bit different. Stewie says a bit deeper. It might be a metre deep here, but sand exposed all around it and really weedy at the front. So as Stewie said, the sand here's going to be a bit higher and the tide's coming this way. It's going to flood in here quicker. So you start up this end town, exactly like Stewie said. And you're casting, the fish are going to be sitting like generally in this area here on that edge, maybe even up in here a little bit at the entrance of all of these here, because there might be a few along here as well. And you might find a few, there might be a bit of bait here.
Is this a rising tide or a...
Yeah, rising tide. And there'll be more out the front here again. So they'll be predominantly out the front of these little drains, okay? And what'll happen is, as Stewie said, he'll start his boat up here. His boat's facing this way into the current. and he might either drift back, or he might actually won't sit there. He'll probably sit out a bit further, around here somewhere. And from there to there, that area there is around about probably 15, 20 metres, Stu? Maybe a bit
Yeah,
more.
probably.
Yeah. So Stewie's just slowly drifting back. He's casted up in this direction, like so, and the boat's slowly going back that way. And when he gets to around probably this area here,
I'd actually start here and I'd cast up that way. I'd work that way.
would you work up against it?
I'll work against
Okay.
it.
I work with it, but I keep my boat going, so it's with my electric, or I just drift down with it. Depends on how fast the drift is and the wind. So the ideal scenario is if you've got the wind blowing from the west this way and the current's going that way, it's going to be really quite a slow drift. But your line's going to come down a bit quicker, okay? Because you're not moving very far. For Stewie working up into it, he can work quite slow because he's just slowly going up, but the line's casting up and coming back with him, to him, all the time. But regardless, this is where the fish are going to be, in this vicinity with the odd loners along the edge here. There's a bit of bait along the edge, so I'll be here, but they'll be mainly sitting here stacked up, ready to go up into these drains as the bait goes up there. They'll be right at their backside chasing them. And that's where in every scenario, and if you're land-based, where the canals come out, it's a bigger version of it, right? But if you're in a boat, you need to try and find those drains that are running off banks.
So they'll be orientated into the tide. The
Correct,
fish
they'll be
themselves,
all
sitting
facing that way.
facing in.
That's right, yep. So we're casting up and bringing it back past their head. They'll turn around and grab it. There won't be much sitting out here at all. There'll be nothing. Like you might get channel rats. They'll all be here. I wish there was that many flathead. They're probably only talking like 3 there, 5 there, maybe 4 or 5 there, and the odd loner along the edge chasing bait right up. But don't be scared to cast your bait up, your lure up onto the weed or up onto the edge, even on the sand, and then hop it back out. Just pop it over the weed and let it sit, and then work it. I wouldn't be casting my line to the drop off here. So that's exposed weed. And that might be a metre deep, then it drops down to 2.5 there. And you want to sort of have your boat sitting out there, but cast up onto the edge and work it back. And then when it drops, when you sort of do the lift up and it drops down a bit, you know, you've gone over that edge, don't actually take up too much slack, because you pull the line too close to the boat. You want to get a bit of action in that area to see where it's falling on that edge. And a lot of time it's sitting on this edge here. But most of the fish will be up here chasing the bait in amongst that weed and stuff. Would you say the same, Stu?
Yeah.
Then once the tide starts to flood a bit, so say now this has got a metre of water over it, over here, and then here's now 2 metres deep. You might do some other fishing and come back here, and then you'll get up into here, and you'll sit there, and the current's coming this way, and you'll cast that direction, that direction, that direction, that direction, and work your line back past those weed clumps and stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah. And in this one here, this is the same deal. This is all exposed, and now that sort of is becoming underwater, and this is now deep enough for you to get up inside here. Stu would probably start here and work his way up rather than work back, because that's the right way to do it, and cast all this area here, all this area here, all this area here, and maybe even cast into there when you get up to the top here, and work your way up in that drain that might be 200 metres long. Okay, sometimes that drain will actually come out the other end here too. That might come to there, you know, and you work your way back out again. But yeah, so work your way. Drains are really good to hold a lot of big fish. They hold bait. And a lot of time, if you can get in there at low tide, and that might be 1.5 metres deep and 200 metres long and 30 metres wide, definitely work it, even on the low tide, if you can get in there. Once you get in, it gets a bit deeper. There's a few spots up jumping pin that are like that, and around crab as well. Yeah. But if you just fish out in the middle here, you're going to catch jack crap. Nothing. Drifting down the main channel. Waste your time. They're always on the edge. And the other thing too, if you're land-based, for the guys that are land-based, if you're standing here and same scenario and it's low tide and you got hopefully that weed's out here a bit further, but if the current's coming in that way, change that around. Current's coming this way, cast up quite flat along that edge, so you're working back to the edge of the weed up from you, if that makes sense. That's where they'll be. Sorry.
Are they a foot from the edge or a metre from the edge?
They're right on the edge.
Right on the edge.
Yeah. Quite often we'll cast up, like you see your plastic on the weed, and just hop it, and then go lift it, and next one whack, or just be you hop it into the water, and it's tunk, and you know, so they come shooting straight out the boat towards you, the big ones. Yeah. If you've got a hard body though, you'd be casting up into that area there. Past is holy crap. Yeah. So does that make sense? And then Stu, do you want to explain how you do it? I know we're running out of time. Sorry guys, real quickly. Say on a big sandbank, mate, what are you looking for? So just draw a scenario. So this is the sandbank here. And there's trees here, trees here, trees here, trees here. Bit of weed here, bit of weed here, bit of weed here, and maybe a bit of a bay here. That's as far as you can get it. Low tide, you can't get up on there, but when the tide starts coming in and it starts flooding and you can get up there, Stu, where would you cast, man?
Yeah, so I'd probably start down here. Obviously, like there's fish, all of these fish have to go somewhere at low tide, sorry. They can't be up there as a dry. So generally, they'll fall into the closest deeper water. So they'll fall into this hole here.
Yeah, there's weed here.
Run out now.
This is low tide coming in.
Low tide.
Yep, so it's low tide, so they've already fallen off all this area. This area is dry, they're down here. They might be sitting around those weed patches as Dougie's just drawn. As that tide floods, they're going to move up here to feed. They've still fed down there because they've got that last bit of water that's washed off there and all the baits come to them. Those fish then generally will transition up into this area. If you've got a good tree line here with a good mangrove edge, like where the peg roots come out, and then you've got sand and yabby holes and stuff like that, you'll generally find a lot of fish sit along that line. A, it's a good ambush point, and B, bait moves from here, all this open water, into the mangrove stuff to shelter and feed and all that stuff.
Sort of root line of the mangrove.
Yeah, yeah, they don't sit on the root line, they sit on it. Yeah, so those fish there will transition from there. If you can get it when they're transitioning from here to here, you're laughing. They're active fish. They're not sitting there. They're not buried. They're roaming around. They're going to eat. They're definitely going to eat. So you just need to try to find out that happy medium. Generally, about a foot of water. Foot of water, they're pretty comfortable. Anything less, it's got to be pretty glassy and pretty flat. Unfortunately, Gold Coast, busy area, we don't get it. We get boat traffic. Waves break in less than a foot. Yeah. Yes, mate.
Do they ever go on or among the mangrove spikes?
Nah, I've never seen
No,
them.
they like their bellies tickled, I think.
Yeah.
They like their bellies tickled.
But yeah, so try to get them in that transition stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to work with them, and you'll actually see them sometimes shoot past you onto the flats.
Yeah.
So, you know, when they get pushed off
Yep.
into the deep water, and then it's pretty dead for a while, nothing's going on, will they stay there, or will they fuck off somewhere else?
No,
I reckon they stay.
they just don't feed well in dead water though.
Yeah.
So dead water means that there's no current there. It's just just flat. Sometimes the water will rise like that actually in some of those areas, but
They won't nick off, they'll
Nah, they'll stick around.
or they may chase bait over there, but there's a little bit of current and more bait in that area. They may swim over there and work, I think. Oh, we find.
Yeah.
We'll-
The best.
I like fishing ripples too, which Stu doesn't like fishing so much. But
I don't like fishing
I
ripples.
believe they feed in ripple areas too.
A little bit more cover.
Yeah.
Ripple areas are just where Dougie sees ripply water. So that's very vague, but that's what he looks for.
Not when a boat goes past.
Yeah. We have gone to a lot of ripples that are boat ripples. And we went there and the cover was bare. But generally ripples mean change in bottom contour. So they might sit in the little hogs and hollows and stuff like that. If you want to learn how to fish this stuff good, get out of your boat at low tide and walk. Flathead leave a lie on the beach. It looks like a coffin. You just look to see where they sit, see which way they're facing. They might all sit that way. They might all sit that way into the tide. They might sit that way. They might sit over there more. They might sit over there more. You'll generally see a fish transition. If you get out of your boat and see a really big one here, and then 8 meters over there, there's another really big one, and it's always poking the same direction. It's probably the same fish. It's come out.
There's 30 lies there. Like
That's right. They've moved.
3 fish.
Yeah, they've moved there and they've moved there. They've moved around. When they bury, they don't just sit on top of the. Well, very rarely do they just sit on top of the sand. They always shimmy in a little bit, so they'll leave that lie. So, but you learn a lot by walking a bank.
So the best times, well, I find a fish I think Stewie is similar, is definitely the first to run in tide. So that, as Stewie said, they'll be sitting on that edge there. You might catch them there before they go up. And if you find those entrances, like we said before, they'll be at the entrances, so you get them there as well. And then once the tide gets up onto the flats, they get harder to catch. They spread out everywhere. But you cut them off at the pass before that. The first 2 hours to run in is a good time to chase flatties where they're about to go up onto a bank somewhere. And if you're shore-based, try that canal entrance or where there may be a bit of weed out from the canal entrance along the foreshore, and then there's all sand above that. They'll be around that weed hiding, waiting for the sand to come up, the water to come up over the sand before they shoot out up onto the sand. So you'll need to try and find those weed patches on the low tide. Okay. The next stage of the tide is the high tide is a really good tide to fish because they're up, like Stewie said, right up on this edge up here. You sort of know where they're going to be. They've settled down and they might be chasing a bit of food, whatever. They've done their bit of roaming around where they're all everywhere, and then we'll sort of concentrate on one area. And again, you can sort of then work that area and catch them. And then you don't get much for the first 2 hours of the run out. Then there's always a bite time 2 hours after high tide, as I always say. So 2 to 3.5 hours after the high tide is that hour and a half, between 2 and 3.5, is a really good bite time. Okay. Just happens every time. The other day it happened to us. We only got 5 minutes of it though.
say they're first up and first off.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Pretty well.
So,
Yep.
So that high tide,
Yep.
as soon as it hits that high tide mark, starts to turn,
Yep.
they sort of start to head.
Yeah, they move pretty quick, don't they?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. I
after
reckon
an
they're
hour.
the first one off, the last one off. First one on, last one off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's,
They want to stay up there as long as they can, generally. Unless
Depends
it's
on the bait.
feeding into a really good drain and there's all bait down here or whatever, they're going to know.
yeah.
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 Yeah, they'll jump from the flats into the drains. Yeah. Does that all make sense?
When something's deep and it's starting to drain, and like you've seen it at high tide, and you can see where it drains, although when it's at high tide,
Yeah, it's full.
2 meters
Yep.
above it.
Yep.
Will they sit in that
Mm.
contour?
That's what I'm saying. They drop from the flats into the drains,
Yeah.
and then they'll work their way out of the drains into the deep, into the channel later. Yeah. So we'll fish a lot of those sort of, like that pocket before I said, on the once the tide's dropped a bit. Yeah, because they'll be in there. Yeah.
But even in the drain, even if the water's a
Yeah,
metre
yeah,
above it,
Yeah. Yeah, if it's
Yeah,
running out of there,
some-
cast up into it 100%. Yeah.
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 They love any change in bottom contour. It could be a stingray hole, could be a prop dig from when someone's running around on a low tide.
Me.
They'll sit in that stuff.
I made lots of flathead houses. And any other questions at all?
Water quality? Water quality?
Oh, yeah, water quality. So, look, we learned hard the first Wilson comp recently was temperature. So, for some reason, went from 18 to 14 in one day.
Wow.
And we went up where we caught them 2 days earlier, or 3 days earlier. They were on thick, and we went to the same spot, and they were shut down. And the people who fished around the bar entrance where it was back to 18 smashed it. So water temperature, they don't like 14 degrees. Water temp was cold this year.
That
So
first round?
yeah. So it's got to be around about 18. At the moment it's like 21, 22, so they're happy they're feeding well. Second thing is water clarity. If you've got northerly wind blowing, it generally stirs. I don't know how it works. It's called a Coriolis effect, but it lifts the bottom to the top, rolls the water over, and that's when you get all this weeds, knotweed and stuff, and the water goes really dirty really quick. It's because it's rolled the bottom to the top.
That's with the
northerly. A southerly wind is probably one of the best winds to fish. It's very clean. The fish seem to bite well. The bait herds up well. Easterly, we don't really like an easterly wind too much to fish through. Easterly wind's a bit one of those winds that sort of, they'll either bite or they won't bite, but it's never predictable. And a westerly wind is not too bad, and it generally cleans the water as well.
So that's what they call it, the north death wind.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
Yeah,
It makes the water cold, dirty and yuck, and the fish just switch off. Yeah.
To get back to your question, Paul, I'd rather fish clean water than dirty water with bait.
So if
It's just a confidence thing.
yeah,
You get guys
100%.
that just want to chase bait because they know that fish are going to be near it, so they'll fish in water that colour. Yeah. But for me, I'd rather hunt around and try to find that bit cleaner water. Generally, cleaner water is a little bit cooler. And yeah, it's just one of those. Yeah, I'd rather that.
We're just lucky that the sand is like a filter in some areas, so particularly in shallow water. So you'll find that the dirty water is always in the channels and the clean water's up on top of the banks. And if you can find that scenario where you've got a little pocket, it'll be that colour all around it for 400 metres by 400 metres all the way around it, but there'll be that pocket the size of an Olympic pool on the weed bed in a little ditch, and it'll be full of flatties. And it's clear. It's like it's fairly clear. And that's what you got to look for. So sometimes we'll drive around for half an hour till we see a pocket, and we know it's on top of the bank, we know there's weed there, and there'll always be bait there, and we'll try and get our way in there. Don't get stuck in there though, because remember the tide's dropping by the time. So, and it's always cleaner water on the run in than the run out. The run out becomes dirty like that. The run in, you generally dirty at the start because it's got to get rid of all that yuck. But once it comes in clear, like the last 2 hours, it'll clear up real quick. But on the run out, you only got about a half-hour window, generally speaking. There's blind southerly a long time. Yeah. Anything else at all?
One quick question.
Yes.
Can you use plastics at night?
Yeah, good question. Look, flathead are very hard to catch at night because they can't see, they're blind. I'll keep
I was
going
waiting
back
to see where you were going to go with that. I was ready.
No, mate. And it's true. The only place you'll catch flatty or plastics at night that I've ever caught them on, and I've seen customers catch them, is around bridges with bright lights where they can see the bait. Yeah. So if you just jig off a bridge and just lift the boat, trouble is most of the bridges now you can't fish off. They've got signs up, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're in a boat, you could probably do a cast on the shoreline, maybe along the edges of lights along the pylons. Give that a crack. Yeah. Use white probably be the go at night.
What's the major species we're catching here in the?
And now, it's flathead.
Yeah.
Dusky.
Dusky, yeah. So we got a few bar tailed the other day, but they're always like 30 centimetres. They're small. Yeah. Okay. Anything else at all, folks? Go get them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
When you've got like, say you've got like half a metre of water or a metre of water, or maybe half a metre, and then you get like a drop off that might go down to 3 metres.
Yep.
Are they?
Yeah, so they'll follow you down that hollow sometimes.
So are they?
So if I'm in a boat, so you're in a boat, you're talking now or from shore?
Yeah.
If it's on a boat, I'll position myself out in that 3 metres and cast back to the edge.
Yeah.
And if I don't get one straight away in that weed or that edge on the fringe, then I'll hop it. And as I said before, when it goes, when I see it goes like quick down, and my slack's not sitting there. Sometimes even the bar alarm up instead of fall a bit more, not normally, but I'll let it free fall a lot longer and then work. Cause sometimes I hit it as soon as you go down that slope. You might get a dunk or a hit, or I'll then work it along that 3 metres back to the boat. And work it right back to the boat. A lot of times you go to lift up or wind at the last bit and you'll see a big flatty come up. You see that's like squid, just drop the bar line open.
So they won't necessarily sit down off the drop off?
I think they sit on the drop itself.
On the edge,
Oh, I think
on the
so.
edge, yeah.
Yeah. It's an ambush point for him, yeah.
In the next seminars is the most debatable thing between me and Stuart, because he always likes to troll the shallow edge and I like to troll the deep edge. Okay, so I believe the flatties sit on that angle, you know, or they come out sit on that angle. Where Stu likes to get them up in the shallow.
I just can't understand why you'd troll a 3 metre diver in 15 foot of water. When
There's probably
Dougie's just
places like
said,
that.
when Dougie's just said that he wants the lure to hit the bottom. This is changing a little bit. This is the open debate. We'll leave everyone thinking on this. The knowledge that has come out of this man's mouth sometimes is debatable.
8 to 10 foot of water is the perfect the depth. I like. Yeah, for trolling. Yeah. On the edge. Yeah, don't go over 10 foot. 8 to 10. Yeah.
I always hear, just out there, just go deeper. Just go deeper. We can be in the middle of the channel and he still wants to go deeper. I don't know where he wants to go, but he wants to go somewhere.
Believe it or not, Peter Bakula years ago used to do real well in the Flathead Classic, and he used to troll Man's 25 plus with a massive lure with a big bib about that big on it. And he used to troll the seaway on the in and outside of that green beacon on the bend, is that where the shitter pipes are there? And it's 10, 15 metres deep there. And that's where he used to troll, he won it many times, big ones. Rest my case. Okay, going to do the draw now.
That was then.
Just to clarify, so you said the best times to fish is the last 2 hours of the...
Obviously, the first to run in. Yep, the high tide's good too. They get right up on the edge. And then you won't get much till about 2 to 3 hours later after high tide.
Okay.
So if high tide was at, say, 10 in the morning.
So first of the run in, last of the run in.
Yeah, so if you got low tide at 6:30 in the morning, you'll get a good bite probably from about 6 till about 8 o'clock, and then it'll be a bit quiet. And then about probably high tide's at midday, so you get another bite about. You'll get fish around the place, but the better bite will be probably around about 11:30 till about 1. And then once it starts running pretty hard, it'll be a bit quiet till it drops a bit, and then you'll find the best bite. So high tide's at 12, be around about 2 to about 3:30, 4 o'clock. Yeah. It just gets a steady flow happening. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, folks. So we're going to do the giveaway now, and a couple of things to tell you about, but we'll tell you about after we turn that off. But we'll do the giveaway first. So first prize tonight is about $500 worth of lures. A lot of lures. Okay, so Stuart, gonna pull that. Thanks for coming along tonight. I hope you guys do enhance your fishing. That's what we're all about, is trying to teach you a bit better. Anyone here fishing the Flathead Classic? A lot of yous are, including Steve-O. So Steve, my mate here, we grew up together as little boys, and Steve's become a fisherman pretty hard lately. I'm very impressed with that, Steve, by the way. Late in life, mate, but...
I'm learning off Steve.
You'll do well. You'll do well.
I was about to say you'd never taken advantage of me. Yeah.
Number 12.
12. You serious? Get out of it. No, that's not a setup. Stewie, draw that. Stewie, draw that. What? After what you said. You want to throw that too much? Cheers, buddy. Good on you, Steve. Okay, second one's about $300 for the gear. Down the back, number 40. Well done, buddy. I'll get Stuart to pass that down to you. Well done, mate. No one clapped for you, Steve.